Well, hello. Good evening, everybody. It is the day before Thanksgiving, the same time that, not the same date, but the same time that our friend, enemy, anti-hero, bad guy, good guy, DB Cooper, terrorist hijacker, was hijacking his plane the day before Thanksgiving. We don't know his reasons for doing that. We can speculate. But anyway, big news, obviously. I've kind of stirred the pot a little bit. Hopefully I've made some headway into this McCoy thing. I know that some people are going to click on this video instead of my debunking video. So I'll just get right into the Cliff's Notes version of this. Essentially, everybody in let's just say that Cooper, I'll make this very easy for everybody to understand. Okay. Essentially, let's pretend that Cooper asked for a getaway car instead of parachutes. Okay. And they give him a Ford Mustang. Everybody sees the Ford Mustang. Everybody talks about the Ford Mustang in interviews with the FBI. The guy who owned the Ford Mustang talks about, it was my Ford Mustang. We have documentation where he's asking for reimbursement for his Ford Mustang that was used as the getaway car. We have the mechanic of the getaway car saying, oh yeah, that Ford Mustang, just a boring old standard Mustang. When they're talking to him, it's just a Mustang. Mustang, Ford Mustang. Well, 40 years later, this mechanic decides that he starts to tell some stories. He goes, well, there was a Ford Mustang. It was a Ford Mustang, but it was actually my Ford Mustang. Well, we know that 40 years ago, he was saying he was just a mechanic, right? But he's saying 40 years later, it was my Mustang. Ford Mustang, Ford Mustang, Ford Mustang. Well, this parachute that Dan Gryder found is a Buick, right? It's not even a souped up different Ford Mustang. It's not a Ford Mustang. It's not even a Ford. All right. It is a Air Force rig. All right. So I will just bring up some images here just so you know. The way we can tell is that Air Force rigs have a little piece of webbing. Let me bring that up for everybody. That there is a piece of webbing that the Air Force rigs have. And it's highlighted in this picture here. Now, I guess I'll back up that we're looking for a Navy rig, a substitute Ford Mustang for Navy parachute. Okay, we're looking for Navy parachutes. We're looking for Ford Mustangs, right? We're looking for Navy parachutes. Well, Dan Gryder found an Air Force parachute. Okay, Air Force parachutes have these little, see that little webbing there. Okay, that is where your fastener hooks to your harness. Okay, you'll see here. Navy parachutes have these things that slide up and down. The fasteners will slide up and down, as you'll see there. That's the connector, the fastener. Air Force rigs have this dedicated piece of webbing right there. Okay, they don't slide up and down like that. Okay, they're different. You can see the difference here. These are different things. Dan Gryder's parachute is an Air Force. It's a Buick. We're looking for a Navy parachute. Okay, so there is no way that this is no one has ever said it was a Buick, essentially. Even the guy who Dan Gryder is relying on 40 years later for his parachute description, Dan Gryder's parachute doesn't even match that. So I don't know how we even got to this place. But anyway, there's the Cliff Notes for anybody who just clicked on this. This parachute is not related to DB Cooper whatsoever. Okay, we're looking for a Ford Mustang. He found a Buick. Not even the same car model, brand, whatever. Okay, this is not DB Cooper's parachute. Period. End of story. Full stop. All right. So, having said that, if you want to see my other video, if you clicked on this one by mistake, this is our live chat on the night after I published that video. So we're just going to hang out and talk about this. And whenever Cooper gets in the news, sometimes we think there's no bad thing as, or there's no bad press. You know, there's no publicity that can be bad press, and some people think, there can be bad press. And I'm of two minds here. It is good that we have new people watching and interested in this case because of this DB Cooper parachute story. We all had to start somewhere, right? I see lots of McCoy people in my comments, and you know what? The bottom line is that many of us in the Cooper world started out as McCoy people, essentially. He wants the attention, not the truth. Well, perhaps. but I was too deferential to Gryder, some people are saying. Yes. So, but anyway, yes, thank you. There's people saying the people are getting educated, but look, there's no shame in being a McCoy person. If you're watching this now and you think it was McCoy, that's okay. But it almost certainly was not McCoy. But it's reasonable to think that. I mean, I was probably a McCoy person at some point. You know, we go through phases, and most people, a lot of people, when they get into the case, they're like, well, this is obvious, right? This guy did the same crime like 5 months later. Surely it's the same guy. Well, they forget that 5 other people did this. You know, this wasn't a unique crime. DB Cooper's notable because he was the first and he got away with it, right? If DB Cooper did not get away with it, well, there probably wouldn't be copycat hijackers. It might have been actually. There probably would have been, because hijacking had a 0% success rate up to that point. Yet there were 130 skyjackings in a 5-year period in the U.S. back then. So people were skyjacking even though there was a 0% chance of success. So if Cooper had been caught, I suppose copycats still would have tried. Regardless, we hold Cooper in esteem, I guess, or notoriety, because he was successful. And because he was the first mainly. And really, in my opinion, he was only successful because he was the first, I think. They put security, they started doing different things after Cooper. They kind of caught the FBI by surprise. And I think that's why he got away with it. All right. So be very ashamed if you're a McCoy person. Somebody says, no. Look, we ought to start somewhere, okay? And I will say this, though. If you're a McCoy person, I would say that I would estimate there's probably maybe 200-ish people in the world who were like super hardcore Cooperites. It may be a lot more, but the ones that I interact with at CooperCons or online all day long, none of them believe it was McCoy. Like zero, none. So that should kind of, make you think twice about McCoy. Only people like Gryder. Well, I wouldn't say only. McCoy's kids think it was their dad, but I mean, they're good people. The McCoy children are good people, but they don't have any real evidence to that either. So because there is no evidence to it either, because he wasn't DB Cooper. If he was DB Cooper, there'd probably be evidence for it. All right. Can we do a gobble off? Well, I have a gobble, I think. Yeah, look at that turkey gobble right there. Speaking of gobbles, yeah, for those who don't know, DB Cooper had a turkey neck like me, at a gobble, at a turkey neck. All right. Let's look at Richard McCoy after he was arrested. Prominent Adam's apple, no turkey neck, no turkey gobble whatsoever. And while that may look like an older guy to our generation, during McCoy's own hijacking, his eyewitnesses all pegged him for being late 20s. Okay. I think only one eyewitness actually went over 30 for McCoy, which is shocking. You look at him, he looks old. But for the time period, they correctly thought he was in his 20s. And Cooper was certainly not in his 20s. Cooper was an older guy. He had wrinkles around his mouth. They commented on the wrinkles around his mouth. He had a lot of crow's feet around his eyes. He had wrinkles on his face. I guess like I do, I suppose. But he was older. Okay. He was not, McCoy barely had any wrinkles even at his age there. So definitely not Cooper for many, many reasons. Mainly, let's think about some of the reasons why. Clearly, hey, look here. Photograph of Richard McCoy has been displayed to 3 witnesses by the Portland Division, 3 witnesses by Seattle, and the 3 stewardesses. None identify McCoy as their hijacker. All right. So, I mean, that's kind of pretty hard evidence there. Yet McCoy was identified by his people, and McCoy was actually wearing a disguise. Cooper was just wearing sunglasses. I've heard Dan Gryder say, "Oh, he was disguised. That's why the witnesses." You send that to Dan Gryder. He goes, "Oh, well, that's just he was wearing a disguise." What disguise? Sunglasses? Come on, ridiculous. Okay, but I want to talk about that. McCoy and Cooper were partners in crime. I don't know. All right, let's see. Let me look at some of these comments. We're just gonna have a talking or a chat with everybody. Okay. I have a question. There is all sorts of talk about the FBI 302s and information from the 302s, but are there any police reports, be it local or state, from the hijacking? Yeah, actually, well, only one, interestingly enough, and maybe I can even show it to you guys. Only one that I know of, and it is from the sheriff's department. let me see if I can pull that up. It's from the sheriff's department, and it's them talking about the incident. It's actually, it's kind of a cool clip. It's the very first. I think here it is right here. Yep. Wait, well, that's a small one. My bad. It's the very first report we have of the Cooper hijacking. It's really cool. I like this a lot. This is a cool graphic here. This is from the King County Sheriff's Department, and kind of hard to read. I wish I could zoom in on it, but it says complainant, who we now know is a guy named R.D. Pemberton, thanks to John Limbach. R.D. Pemberton called via phone stating that a company aircraft, a 727 Flight 305, was hijacked essentially. So this is their case report that they wrote out immediately for the DB Cooper hijacking. But I don't know of any. Every now and then you'll see some local, but nothing. You'll see some local stuff about suspects where like they'll send in mugshots or whatever. But I don't know of any other police reports from the hijacking. But as far as like the actual reports, now they did contact the FBI a lot. The sheriff's departments and cities were like, "Oh yeah, we had a guy in here a couple weeks ago. He looks like the sketch or whatever." Let's see. Was McCoy's whereabouts known in spring of 72? He was in class at BYU the whole time. I mean, it's not, he was a student, and that's how it's one of the things he knew about Cooper because he wrote an essay on Cooper. All right. That essay, he actually mentions that essay when he's begging for leniency with the judge. We have McCoy talking to the judge when he's being sentenced, saying, "Look, I wrote a paper about this, and I got a little obsessed with DB Cooper." So again, not Cooper. He was a copycat, not Cooper. Yeah. Okay. That's funny. I don't trust anyone named Pemberton. Is that a Civil War reference? I'm curious. As a Southerner, that's kind of funny for me. All right. No evidence can convince someone with a strong enough viewpoint. I know when you hear people say, nothing can convince me. Well, that's digging yourself a hole, isn't it? To say no one can convince you. All right. All right. So let me see. The McCoy kids don't push their dad being Cooper. Yes, they don't push it. If they're asked about it, they'll say, I mean, I've had conversations with Shanti, the daughter, and yeah, she still believes her dad was Cooper. I've like, did you see my video about it? And she said, yeah, I did. And I still think it's my dad. All right. Does the FBI have McCoy's parachute? Okay. You wonder how the planting was planned. I will not comment on any planting theories. Do not want to be sued for defamation. Did the FBI have McCoy's chute? Okay. So here's the thing about McCoy, and this is something else that's weird. Dan Gryder Dan Gryder, with respect to Dan Gryder, I don't think he knows this case very well. I mean, look at what he said about this leather bank bag. Cooper famously had the cloth bank bag. It's like known by everybody, really. I mean, even people who barely know the case. But and Dan doesn't know the McCoy hijacking very much either, because he keeps stating that McCoy didn't have his own parachute, and that's maybe why he would have kept the Cooper parachute. Well, no, McCoy had his own parachute, and McCoy brought his own parachute to his own hijacking. He put it in a suitcase. He actually brought two parachutes. He borrowed one from a friend named Larry Patterson. He wanted to have two parachutes with him. He also asked for 4 parachutes, just like Cooper did. But he specified. Cooper just goes, "Yeah, give me parachutes." Cooper says, "Give me 2 fronts, 2 backs." But a skydiver like McCoy goes, "I want 2 paracommanders from Perry Stevens Loft in Oakland, California." I mean, he specified what parachutes he wanted. Okay, he asks for I want a Ford Mustang Shelby. Cooper just says, give me a getaway car, and they could have brought him a Ford Escape, right? I mean, Cooper just says parachutes, right? So McCoy's specific about it. But McCoy brings his own parachute with him. He also borrows one, so he would not need to borrow one if he already had this Cooper chute with him. He'd just bring it. But his own parachute busts in the plane. It had an altimeter setting on it, and it popped and it knocked over one of the stewardesses, which is unfortunate. But so he actually ended up using one of the using his buddy's parachute as his main parachute, and as a reserve, he had to take one of the parachutes that was supplied to him, which had a tracker in it, because they were, once the Cooper hijacking happened, they started putting trackers in parachutes for these guys. Okay. If the FBI has Rick McCoy's DNA, why would they want to exhume Richard? Well, okay, so basically, I'm not a DNA specialist. I mean, I've really tried to understand it, but essentially, for whatever reason, they need a 1-to-1 sample. I don't understand it, so maybe somebody can do it, but maybe somebody, if Nicole understands, maybe Nicole's watching, she can type it out and I'll read it. But there is a reason why they would need 1-to-1 for a comparison. Okay. Yes, Dan's goose is cooked. The rig ain't Navy. The D-ring's incapable. I'll make it gravy. Yeah, it's not even good. It's not even like close, is it? It's terrible, actually. It is a random parachute. Like, it may as well be some of the ones that I've got laying around here. It's just, I don't get it. Hate to say it, McCoy is way more interesting than Cooper. Well, we don't know that. We don't know who Cooper was, right? Maybe Cooper's life was more interesting than Cooper. But I've said that again, and I've said this before. Richard McCoy is fascinating, right? He's a Green Beret, then goes and has one tour of Vietnam as a Green Beret, Special Forces guy, then learns how to fly a helicopter and is as brave as it gets, just as brave can be. McCoy was so fearless as a person, but he came back from the war, had migraines, terrible migraines. He'd pound his head into the wall. He probably thought he was dying of some kind of brain disease or something. He had terrible post-traumatic stress. The FBI files that we have on McCoy, again, when people are like, it's McCoy, look, we have, like, you can go look them up. There's 800 pages of McCoy FBI files out there. They're online. Go to the FBI's Vault website, type in Richard McCoy. I mean, he had major suicidal ideations, which a lot of hijackers do. Most of these guys, Rob Hetty, I know Richard LaPointe, had mental problems. They were, if I die, I die, right? These guys had survived the war, had some survivor's guilt, had killed people. They were messed up. So McCoy, I don't think McCoy's a bad guy. But let's see. Personally, I like Mac's story. Yeah, Mac's the one that if Mac had got away, we would never talk about DB Cooper. DB Cooper would be we'd talk about him, but he'd be a footnote. If Martin McNally had escaped, and he almost did, if Martin McNally had escaped, we would not be the DB Cooper mystery group on Facebook. We'd be the Robert Wilson mystery group. There'd be Robert Wilson, the mystery of Robert Wilson that was his alias, on HBO, Netflix, because his hijacking is out of control. For those who need like something to listen to, a podcast, listen to mine, listen to Quick Cooper Vortex, but also look up American Skyjacker. It's basically Martin McNally for 10 hours telling you the story of his own Cooper hijacking. Fascinating stuff. Okay. D-rings brought me here. Wait, what? I know, the D-rings brought me here. That's funny. Who thought we'd be talking about D-rings? Hi, Lee Ken. Yes, I am doing well. Okay. See, do you believe the small robbery store was indeed Cooper? Yeah, that store still exists. That's the Heisen store, Katie. Yeah, I don't think so. Because there was a whole slew of robberies there was a lot of robberies going on around that time period in that county. We've looked it up. I think there may have been 3 on that exact night, and they were kind of similar. They were just break-ins of like small stores. I guess they were looking maybe to see if there was cash in the cash register. They didn't steal much. In all these break-ins that night, they were just taking like beef jerky and stuff. It was weird. I think they were looking for cash or something. But I don't think that that store was Cooper. It's in the right location, roughly, but I don't think that Cooper would take that risk of breaking into a place like that. Too much of a risk to be shot. I mean, always put yourself in Cooper's position, right? You're in the woods. You're trying to get somewhere to where you know where you are. You're not going to be seen at night. It's like the story of the guy walking down the road on Lower River Road. or the Lewis River Road. I'm sorry, Lower River Road's where Tina Bar is, but the Lewis River Road, there was the sighting of the guy who was walking down the road. If I'm DB Cooper and I see headlights coming down the road, I'm getting the hell off the road. I'm not going to let a car go by me with headlights. It could be a sheriff's department guy for all I know, right? So I don't buy that at all. Whoever that was a drunk or wasn't afraid of a cop seeing him. Cooper just committed a capital crime. He's not letting a car with headlights come past him on the street, walking down the road. Not at all. All right. People are saying very bad connection. Well, I guess that's just you guys. Okay. Some people are saying the connection's fine. Well, I don't know. Let me get off my Wi-Fi. I'll maybe that'll help. Okay. Why didn't Dan get fined for dropping a bag of fake money over the Columbia River? He could have hit somebody and he was littering. I don't know. Dan does a lot of things, doesn't he? Dan does a lot of things. I never understood that experiment either. Like that, what was he even doing with that? Like Cooper, like he didn't even try to hold on to it. He just lets it go to pull his ripcord. Like, what were you trying to show there? I mean, and again, like we know what Cooper looked like. Like according to Tina Mucklow, this had a drop bag. He had parachute cord tied around his waist, the money bag. Like he wasn't holding it with his arms. Like what ridiculous. But yeah, I don't understand. I never understood Dan's experiment. His fake smoking experiment was kind of funny too. Like again, Drew Beeson, the author of Paratrooper of Fortune, the Ted Braden book. Drew Beeson has actually talked to people who served with McCoy on tours of duty in Vietnam. He asked them, did McCoy ever smoke? Hell no. They responded, he was a good Mormon boy. Didn't drink, didn't smoke. And we know that. Again, the FBI files for his own hijacking, we can see here, if we look at McCoy, let me pull this up. He was not smoking. He was eating candy the whole time, which I guess that was his sugar rush, where we know Cooper literally had speed pills. He had amphetamine. Cooper had drugs with him literally to stay awake. Here's McCoy in the Norjack case. Unsub, that'd be Cooper, described as heavy smoker of Raleigh filter tip cigarettes. In the UAL case, that's McCoy's hijacking, subject brought supply of candy and continually eating candy during the flight. Candy could be a substitute for cigarettes. However, subject in each case, obviously nervous. I like that too, that they're admitting that Cooper was nervous because yeah, Cooper was calm, but he is nervous. It's an FBI file. And I would say to this FBI guy that I don't think he was eating candy because he was nervous. I would say he was eating candy probably for the sugar, right? Whereas Cooper had his pills. He had amphetamine with him, Benzedrine. All right. All right. What do we got here? Do I smoke? I do not. I have smoked, Lee, but no. But yes, that's just fake smoking is ridiculous. And again, what would be the point of that? Why would you even do that? And why would you? And if here's the thing about the McCoy people that kind of it irks me a little bit is the DB Cooper hijacking was successful, right? So why would you not emulate that as closely as possible the second time? And I guess I understand the theory. You could say, well, he improved upon it by bringing his own parachutes or whatever. Okay, fine, but why not wear the same bland disguise? McCoy was dressed up like a clown. I mean, do I have the McCoy outfit that he was wearing? Do I have that on my thing? Because my God, McCoy looked like a circus freak the way he was dressed, and he did it on purpose. McCoy's idea was that, I don't know where he got this from, maybe in criminal justice as his guy doing criminal justice, but like McCoy was dressed ridiculously. In fact, he was dressed so ridiculously that they knew they were being hijacked before they were hijacked. In fact, the McCoy pilots of his plane called down to like the headquarters and said, hey, I think we have a hijacker on board. This is before McCoy even did anything. He's just sitting in the back. But they're like, so that they started to divert to make an emergency landing and have law enforcement meet them. And McCoy heard this announcement, oh, we have mechanical problems. And he knew that he had been spotted. And that's when he started this hijacking. I mean, McCoy was wearing, it was as best as I could get him on AI. McCoy he was wearing a red blazer, blue bell-bottom pants, a bright yellow tie, a floral pattern shirt, a bushy wig, mirrored aviator sunglasses, a fake mustache, and black gloves, and skin bronzer. His skin bronzer was apparently coming off of it. His bronzer was apparently dripping off his face because he was sweating because he was so nervous. That's a big difference in Cooper. Like, and again, what sense does it make? If you're calm as a cucumber the first time you do this, if you're so calm that the passengers have no idea that they're even being hijacked, why the second go around are you panicking, sweating, dripping beads of sweat? Look, folks, if you don't know this, McCoy was so nervous because he's a good guy. McCoy was not a terrible human being. Okay. He had trauma, mental trauma from the war, right? He was a good guy otherwise, but for the trauma, he wouldn't have done this. But he did not. He was such not a criminal that he was so nervous. He left his ransom note in the terminal. Okay. Left it in an envelope where he was sitting in the terminal before he boarded the plane. As they're boarding as everybody's sitting down on the plane, a gate agent walks down the aisle of the plane going, "Did anyone leave an envelope? Did anyone leave an envelope?" Oh, McCoy immediately jumps up and snatches it away. Oh my God, I hope he didn't read it, So, I mean, that's not DB Cooper. McCoy locked himself in the bathroom. A stewardess had to let him out. Like, this guy was just like, ugh. I mean, he pulled it off, but I mean, he was not Cooper. Okay. Anyway, so do I make money from this? Is that why you're coping like this? No, Ethan. What money would I make? Am I selling a book? What money do I make? Dan Gryder has 100,000 subs, and at the end of his video gave out his PayPal, his Zelle, his Venmo, and his Cash App. You won't see that from me, so I don't know how I make money from this. Coping like this. My God. People. This is the weird thing about this too. Like, if somebody solved the Cooper hijacking, I'd be so happy. Did y'all ever see Waterworld? There's like the guy in the bowels of the ship where the oil is, and they like leave him down there, the old guy, and he's just like, and then like when it blows up as the flames are coming toward him, he goes, "Oh, thank God." Would that be me if the Cooper case was? I go, "Oh, thank God." Like, I enjoy doing this, but I want to know who the hell he was. If Dan Gryder figured out who Cooper was, then that'd be great. But he didn't. He didn't. This is fake. Not true. So sorry, Ethan. I mean, there's just no universe. Maybe you missed it, but like, we're looking for a Ford Mustang. He found a Buick. This is not Cooper's parachute. All right. Yes, exactly. Make money from Cooper. Comical. Exactly. Like, only grifters make money. Okay. And I'll not name grifters, but there are people who only the bad dudes. Oh, I got a super chat. Well, thank you. How about that? My first super chat ever. I did just make money. I was thinking earlier today. I was like, in stream. Yeah. Bye, Ethan. I was thinking that I was wondering the other day, I was like, Cooper's going to make eventually at the rate that I'm losing money on DB Cooper. Yeah, Ethan, I lose money on this. Like, literally, I lose money doing this stuff, like making money. Good Lord. I wish. Okay. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, Cooper's going to extort a ransom from me. Yeah, exactly. The Ubers just to the museum were $40. Like, well, I didn't pay an Uber. Thank you to Brad and Nicole. Okay. Make money from Cooper. My God. I wish. Okay. DB was locked in the bathroom. No, he was not. DB was not locked in the bathroom. All right. Oh, you think McCoy would have been able to face his wife, Karen, if he gave away some of that ransom? Yeah, folks. Cooper, something about Cooper that we need to remember is he did not have a $200,000 problem. Some people like to say, well, maybe he had a $200,000 problem, and that's why he asked for that amount. Cooper gave, I would say maybe, we're not sure how much money he offered them, but he offered the stewardesses at least $6,000 total, which is like $50,000 today. So he was trying to give them money. for whatever reason. Oh, Steve Allen. Now I am rich. $10. That's right. Where did I get the Cooperite poster? You know, I don't know. Online somewhere. Online somewhere. I don't know where it is. Now I'm rich. Exactly. I'm rich. If only I had 100,000 subs like Dan Gryder, I could just make up shit and get rich from it. Okay. It was a heavy bag. Well, holding on to that. Well, no, I know it's heavy. Have you ever considered having a Patreon? No, it's weird. I'm new at this. I don't want to like build people out of money or anything. But maybe at some point. Will upcoming CooperCons have a live stream? Yeah, I really think so. Maybe not a live stream. I think what we're going to do with that, we talked about that. So live streams are a problem because somebody's got to be manning it the whole time. Somebody's got to be like, oh, my connectivity stinks, or I didn't, it's a real headache. What we're probably going to do is record it professionally. And then you can, after the fact, pay $30 to buy it or something, right? Something like that. Let's see. Was that Dan Gryder using Ethan handle? Maybe. I don't know. We haven't heard from Dan. I don't think I will. I think if Dan mentioned me, that it would drive traffic to the debunking video. So I don't see any reason why he's going to attack me personally as he did. And here's the thing about Dan. Like, I have no problem with Dan Gryder. None. And he invites me on a show and just like attacks me. And I'm baffled because I was like, I thought you were being friendly to me for the past 2 days. And then you're going to like turn on me and use me. And I said, Dan, I'll only do this if you don't edit it. And I asked for a copy. I said, I'll do it, your interview, because I had heard that Dan could be unscrupulous, but I will trust anybody once. Everybody was saying, don't go on with Dan Gryder. I was like, look, I'll go on with Dan Gryder. I can handle myself. But I told Dan, I said, look, no editing, and I want a copy of it. I want you to, will you send me when we're done with this Zoom, will you send me a copy make it available to me as well so I can put it on my channel? Yeah, I'll do that. As soon as we're done, hey, Dan, will you send it to me? Ha ha, sucker. It's like, what? And he just blocked me on Facebook. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yes, and absolutely. Dan Gryder is deleting comments. I will not delete comments on my, yeah, that should tell you something. That's kind of how you know you're in the wrong, when you're deleting like just people commenting on your posts. That's when you know that, yes, it was a nonprofit venture this year. We made no money. We lost money for sure. And we're set up that way too, I think. Any money that we make goes into the next year to pay speakers and things. Okay. I don't want to fight Dan. That's the thing. I mean, I have no problem with Dan. I don't get it. Yeah, Drew says, yeah, McCoy had bad hearing loss. Tina might have picked up on that. Yeah, because Tina and him are whispering the whole time. McCoy's hijacking. He's shouting at people, actually. McCoy, Tina would have picked up on that. Yeah, good point. Thoroughly enjoy your discussions. Look forward to your book. Thank you, Fred. Okay, he did the same thing to Darren. Okay. What do I think of the DB Cooper versus Bigfoot movie? Isn't that like softcore male? You know what? I can't say it on this because I'll get blocked or something, but I think that's like some kind of softcore thing. It's a bunch of guys with no shirts on. I think Darren took the hit. I think Darren Schaefer watched it one time. How did CooperCon go? We'll talk about it. Were we intentionally trolled with the Mac v. Sog McCoy claims? I don't know what that was about. Where did that come from? Like, I don't get it. I know the McCoy guy, I know that the Braden guys like Drew and Mac v. Sog guys were out there mind going, what? McCoy was not Mac v. Sog. He was a Green Beret. I mean, why would you need to make him a Mac v. Sog? Like, it just makes no sense. I don't get it. I'm in the mood for a good fight, Dixie Normus. He says the jump log books are proof of what? Jump log books are proof of what? That McCoy was a skydiver? so was thousands of other people. Yeah. Has anyone ever thought to use a medium? I'm sure. Well, Bruce Smith has done remote viewing. One time, Uncle Bruce did remote viewing, and he saw that he said he spoke to Ted Braden. He somehow found himself in the jungles of Vietnam. Bruce Smith, and I believe Bruce. Bruce sees things. Bruce is a visionary. He said Ted Braden said, "I'm not DB Cooper, but a man named Charles Barkley is." Laugh. I know. I need a laugh button. Ha ha ha. Yes, Charles Barkley though was the name that Ted Braden, that the vision of Ted Braden told Bruce Smith. Actually, it's funny. I should look up Charles Barkley on I should Google Charles Barkley paratrooper or something, see if there is one. But that's what Bruce said that Ted Braden, the ghost of Ted Braden, told him, was that the guy's name was that DB Cooper's name was Charles Barkley. Let's see. Okay. That Mike V. Sog stuff was in the Rick McCoy podcast. Yeah, it was. Let's see. Bummer for Dan. Nick, Drew, Darren, and Burns have been taking all the right steps for our boy Coop. Well, I mean, look, it's like this. I don't care if Gryder found a amazing NB6 or something that was I don't know, but he didn't. Again, he found a Buick. We're looking for a Ford Mustang. He found a Buick. Keep saying that analogy. But it's just how it is. So, this is for the beer I didn't get to buy you at CooperCon. Thank you, Stool Boom. Who are you, Stool Boom? Tell me who you are. Yeah. Let me know. Do I think I could take Cooper in a fight? Well, I don't know. I think I'm actually right now a pretty good, I'm a little heavier than Cooper, I think, but I'm 6'1". I've been shrinking ever since I was a teenager. So I'm 6 foot, 6'1". Cooper's height. I'm 42. Cooper was 45-ish, maybe something like that. Maybe early 40s. Cooper had a turkey gobble. I have a turkey gobble. Cooper had thinning hair. I have thinning hair. Cooper had high cheekbones. I have high cheekbones. I don't know. I don't think I have a pouty lip though. And my nose isn't as thin as Cooper's nose, but I'm about 190. Cooper is 180-ish. Tina Mucklow thought so. Maybe I could take Cooper. It might be an even fight. We might battle to a draw. Is Skip Hall still the favorite suspect? Well, Skip Hall won the vote, and people do still like Skip a lot. I don't know if I think I'll run that poll again in March. We'll do another March Madness and do that. And just for those out there who are watching this for the first time, come join our group. Look up the official DB Cooper group, my group, the official DB Cooper group on Facebook. Request to join, refresh. It automatically makes you join the official DB Cooper group. You can also join the DB Cooper mystery group as well. That's for you, Nikki. Just so you know, it's a shout out for you. Ryan looks thinner in person. Well, thank you. How about that? The camera, it adds pounds, they say. So that's for sure. Well, I appreciate the compliment. I do look thinner in person. I hope so. Cooper at his current age, I could take him. Well, I mean, I don't want to fight a dead man, but because Cooper is certainly dead, but that's a good point. I could definitely take Cooper right now. All right. Let's see. Talk about. Sounds like I may be morphing into Cooper. Yeah, Mary, it is kind of funny. What is that called? Where you not Stockholm syndrome or something? Okay, here we go. All right, Katie. We all want to know with no explanation or reason why, who's your suspected suspect? Well, let's see. My favorite suspect right now. Probably going to be this cat here. I don't talk about him a lot, but it's a picture of him in college. It's a guy named Orville Lions. For those who are new to this case, basically Orville Lions, I actually found his name. I was really happy, proud of myself, Because see, these FBI redactions, if you look on some of these, you'll see that like, you see these redactions, right? Well, names are redacted of people who are, well, if you're dead, your name is not supposed to be redacted. Orville Lions died like in 2002, but for whatever reason, they were still redacting his name in the FBI files that were coming out. And it sounded really interesting, this guy. I was like, man, I wonder who this guy is. And I was like, okay, so his file said he was in the Marine Corps and he was wounded in the Marine Corps in Korea. And he was from Delaware. I was like, okay, well, Delaware is a small state. So I got to find a guy who was wounded in Korea, who was a Marine in Delaware, and who has this number of, so like, if you look at this, these redactions, this is somebody saying that McCoy's voice sounded funny, because it did sound funny. He had a terrible lisp, but you can count the numbers. You can kind of figure out the letter numbers in those box redactions. So I knew how many letters this guy's first, middle, and last name had. So this is the kind of stuff that I do. Yeah, folks, I don't make money on Cooper. I'm just a dork. Okay. I'm not out there grifting anybody. Okay. So I'm here in my office like, I've got an 8 letter first name and a 5-letter last name. And I just went on newspapers.com because, back then what used to happen in the paper, they would say, Ryan Burns, son of, Rick and Patty Burns, was wounded at Incheon Reservoir, last week with the Marine Corps in Korea. So you'd see that in the papers back then. So I typed in wounded Marine, Delaware in local papers. And sure enough, Orville Andrew Lions popped up, and I was like, I'll just check and see. So I went on ancestry.com, Orville Andrew Lions. Boom. Right. It shows him being in Columbus, Mississippi, of all places, right around the time of when the FBI came up to Orville. But Orville was kind of a drifter. He had been a smoke jumper, and he was in Seattle at the time. He's kind of I'm gonna call him a loser. I can't feel bad calling anybody a loser, but like, he was kind of a loser guy. Never had kids or family or anything. He just kind of drifted around from state to state. He was in Mississippi, of all places. God bless him. His car broke down in 1984. And in the early 80s, somebody had called the FBI and said, hey, I think this guy I dated might be Cooper, because he lived, I lost contact with him in 71. We were dating, and he was in Seattle, and he was a smoke jumper, and, was kind of had some villainous thoughts about things. And then after the Cooper hijacking, she says he disappeared, and this is his name. The FBI find him eventually living in Mississippi. His car broke down, and to fix his car, he started working at a motel in Tumsuba, Mississippi, of all places, like bum hell nowhere, right? So he's working there, and the FBI in Seattle, the case agents, they contact the FBI in Mississippi and say, hey, will you go to Tumsuba and find this guy and talk to him about things. And this is in 1984. All right. So the agents go find him. They find him at the motel, and we have the report that the agents wrote back to Seattle saying what the interview happened. And they were flabbergasted. They said, when we introduced ourselves as the FBI, the first thing he said to us was, is this about the hijacking? Like, what? So the FBI, they're firing back. They're like, he brought up the hijacking before we did. Right. So that freaked them out. He had a limp, permanent limp. They said, where'd you get that limp? He goes, I fell out of a tree in the fall of 71 in Seattle. I went to go see a doctor. They're like, when? He's like, so he had this permanent limp from falling out of a tree. He smoked, heavy smoker. The FBI guys, they're like, they're like, he is olive skinned. He is swarthy. He matches perfectly. And I mean, this is him. I don't have a clean picture of him older, but this is him younger. Definitely has a little pointy nose, kind of a little thicker lower lip, has that high forehead, high cheekbones, skinny face. But I like Orville Lions, and he's an interesting guy. Yeah, he was a quiet loner. Yeah, I like Orville. Ryan on Joe Rogan, that'd be funny. I'd be scared to do that. Gryder is reminding me of Colbert and Blevins. Yeah, well, I don't know if Blevins has ever done a publicity stunt like that. I would say, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a Colbert thing. Let's see. Thank you. Meet the parents. Jack Burns is Ryan's dad. Jack was CIA. No, my dad was not CIA. Not even a little bit. All right. Just send a request to the Facebook group. Thank you. Yes. All right. This is gold answer of the night. Thank you, Katie. Yeah. So Orville Lions is a great suspect that people don't know about. I wonder if I even have some stuff on him. Let me see if I can. I'm in a good mood tonight. Let's see. Maybe let's see what I have all these folders on my computer. Let me see what I have in the Orville Lions folder. Let's see. Lions is just, he's great. Here's a brief clip I'll show. Let's see. I'll see if I can. Maybe I can. Yeah. So this is a brief little thing here where this is the FBI looking into Lions. They liked him so much, they made a little spreadsheet of comparing Cooper and Lions. See there, it says there, just the attributes. This is the FBI. I think it's kind of cute that they're making this. Lions did have blue eyes, but I don't know how dark his blue eyes were or not. I don't know. I mean, being dark skinned, I'm sure his eyes maybe weren't bright blue, but it's like he was very polite. Lions is very polite. Familiar with the Pacific Northwest. Lions worked in the Pacific Northwest. Lions lived in Reno at one point. Lions lived in California, Arizona, Nevada. Things like that. So Lions is kind of fun. I like him. Ryan's dad was CIA. People keep saying that. My dad was not CIA. Ryan's dad was DB Cooper. Now my grandfather would be DB Cooper. My grandfather would make a good Cooper suspect. He was Army Air Corps, World War II, Native American. My grandfather definitely was olive skinned. Well, is there anything that makes him unlikely? See, Lions, I guess. Okay, so Lions looks rough when he's old. We do have one photo of him, and I FOIA'd for this photo of Orville. I may try to find it. I did FOIA for this photograph of Orville Lions that they took of him. They did take one photograph. They took some photographs, but they're bad copies because they're in the FBI file. So I had to FOIA for the good copies. Like, this is a bad copy, but that's a side profile of Orville Lions when he's older. But I don't think Orville aged very well at all. And I'd like to find that photograph of him somewhere. If I can find that photograph of, let me see. Maybe it's under Orville. I don't know, but he's a good suspect. A lot of folks don't know about him yet. Well, I guess many people don't. I'm the one who actually found his name, I guess, because it was redacted. It makes you wonder. They redact things. They drive me nuts. I mean, the entire pages are redacted, and it makes no sense. I don't know why they would do that. They're only supposed to get rid of. Dang, where those photographs of Orville Lions go? I don't know. I had them. Oh well, next time. But I'll keep talking. That's a turkey neck. He's got a lot of hair. He does have a lot of hair. Yeah, that's interesting. That narrow nose. Yeah. Ryan looks like DB in the background. People call about my dad. But no, my dad was born in 49. So my dad would have been 20. What is that? 22 at the time. So no, not my dad. Granddad was born in 27. So he'd have been 44. Perfect age for Cooper. McCoy's wife was a Burns. That's right. No relation though. So yeah, Karen and Denise Burns. Speaking of that, let's talk about that for a second. Gryder has this interview that he acts like it's a bombshell with Denise Burns, who is McCoy's sister-in-law, who actually is the one that got him in trouble, really. He was cussing her out, which he didn't even cuss, but he was cussing her out when he realized that she had screwed up and turned him in. McCoy let too many people involved. Too many people knew he was obsessed with this. He talked to too many people about how he could do a better hijacking than Cooper. His wife was an accomplice. His sister-in-law knew, a college kid. His best friend, a couple of his best friends were very much aware that he had ideations toward doing this. But no, Denise Gryder's like, oh, so you babysat the kids for several days around Thanksgiving of 71. Yes. She's like, yeah, I did. I don't remember how many days or what it was. Well, thankfully we have the FBI files that will from 71 when they're investigating, 72 when they're investigating this. They went to Vegas after Thanksgiving dinner because they had guests at their house for Thanksgiving, the McCoys. McCoy was a good enough guy that he invited exchange students to his house. In fact, I think I might have that popped up for McCoy. Let's see. Yes, exchange student here. This is the exchange student being interviewed by the FBI. He stated McCoy invited him to his home on Thanksgiving, but he did not remember anything that was said by McCoy or any of the other guests, multiple people there. He stated he spent most of his time playing with, that's probably Shantae and Rick, redacted. That's the kids' names. Having arrived at the McCoy residence about 10 o'clock, and McCoy was there. So yeah, that's a hell of a haul, people, to escape from a hijacking in Southern Washington and make it to Utah back then, in a day. Yeah, here's more. These are the interviewing agents. This is when they interviewed McCoy, the FBI. During the interview with McCoy, it was noticed that he talked with a noticeable lisp or speech impediment. He rolled his tongue when attempting to pronounce certain words. Let's go again to, this is the co-pilot. His last name was I think Lee, He pressed the view that subject's voice was higher than normal or disguised. Nice, weird misspelling there for disguised, FBI. Come on, guys. But yeah, so McCoy's voice was so unique that the co-pilot thought he was faking it, disguising his voice. But that was just how he talked. He thought he was doing like a Looney Tunes character voice or something. Whereas Cooper spoke intelligently, articulately, with no accent or affectation, Midwestern accent, nothing unique about it at all. Bland as it gets, just like the guy. Blendy McNobody, as Jude says. Okay, so just not Cooper. Yeah, he showed all those FBI cars going to the parachute like a circus. Yeah, it is like a doot, 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 doot. And it turns out that if you listen to the Rick McCoy podcast, Rick McCoy says that it wasn't all FBI guys. It was like 2 cars of FBI's and the rest were game wardens, local sheriffs, whatever. Everybody just wanted to come see the show. What's weird too is that you see in that video on Gryder's page, Rick McCoy, the son, is pointing things out to FBI agents or whoever it is on the farm. Dan Gryder's in the woods with his telescopic lens being filmed by, I guess, his son. And it's like Rick McCoy said that he didn't even know Gryder was in the woods. Isn't that creepy? So Rick McCoy was like, yeah, I didn't know Dan Gryder was in the woods filming us. That's like stalkerish or weird, right? I mean, this is being done for theatrics. I mean, this is a theatrical thing going on here, and it makes you wonder what else is theatrical about all this, right? I'll not say anything more than that. But a 15-hour drive from Washington to McCoy's house. And that's probably now. I mean, imagine in 71 or 72, right? Hell no. No way. All right, my God, everybody's asking questions. Let me take a sip of my lemonade here. Okay, lots of questions to get to. Yeah, I don't know, Nikki. It says the kid he hitched a ride home for during the skyjacking turned him in. That'd be Zimmerman. Yeah, Zimmerman was his name. Maybe Henry Zimmerman. He was a 16-year-old, I think. He just got his license. And you have a picture of old Henry somewhere. I bet I do. Henry Zimmerman. I could show people what he looked like back then. I don't have Zimmerman. Anyway, it was a teenager. I don't know if he turned him in first or if it was Van Yperen, but one of those two. All right. Questions people have. Pete Zimmerman, thank you. Drew, what is Eric Eulis saying about this? Eric Eulis knows that it's not Eric, but Eric knows it's the wrong vehicle, so to speak. Eric was quoted in Lad Bible or something, some UK site today. He's talking about how it's not a Navy rig. So, Eric, all right. Let's see. Blevins brags about how many books he sells. So somebody makes money. That's true, Big Cat. Blevins will be the first to tell you that Into the Blast fills up his gas, puts gas in his tank every month. He loves mentioning that. Yeah. As far as Kenny Christensen goes, I think Larry Carr said it best when he said the only thing that Kenny Christensen and DB Cooper have in common is male genitalia. That's it. That was what Larry Carr said about Blevins. How long does it take to get information requested by FOIA? Oh boy. A year and a half, maybe. It depends. But I mean, I'm getting things that I'm getting things now that I requested well over a year ago. So I'd say about a year. All right. Let's see. What about thoughts on Lake Elsinore, Max Gunther? Okay. I'm going to take this one at a time, I guess. Elsinore, I don't think that was Cooper. I don't think he made it up, but I don't think it's Cooper. We have lots of instances where people in the FBI files, we can read all about it in the original documents, where people were having moments where they're asking about things that would be suspicious. In fact, one of the first suspects was a guy named Gary Samdahl, who was an air traffic controller from Illinois. He was flying home the day before the hijacking. So November 23rd, I guess, was flying home to Portland to see some friends. And he was air traffic controller, and they could have access to cockpits and things. So he was up there just shooting the shit with these pilots. And he asked them, he goes, "Hey, can you lower the back stairs in flight? Is that possible?" And they're like, "Well, we don't know, maybe." He goes, "Well, you know what? I'm a skydiver. I bet I could jump out of that. I bet I could jump out pretty easily out the back of this." Remember, this is the day before, and this is a Northwest Orient 727 flying to Portland from Chicago. And so he's talking about skydiving from a 727, and they actually filed a report. As soon as they got off the plane, the pilots reported him to security. And so after the hijacking happens, the security for Northwest goes, "Oh my God, there was a guy yesterday on one of our flights who got reported for asking about jumping out the back of a 727. Well, they investigated this guy a lot, Gary Samdahl. He had a pretty good alibi. They knew where he was with his family all day, shopping and things on the day before Thanksgiving. So pretty good alibi. The eyewitnesses were shown, the stewardesses were shown photographs of Gary Samdahl. They said he was too handsome. Comes up a lot. One of our other guys who's too handsome to be Cooper. Cooper was ugly. In fact, Cooper may have been fugly because they're not kind to Cooper. Even the male passengers. We have male passengers being shown photographs of suspects going, "That guy's too good looking to be Cooper." So Cooper was not a handsome fella by any stretch. Okay. Okay. So could Elsinore have been one of the copycats? I don't think. No, we know all the copycats. We know what they were up to beforehand because they were captured, right? We know who they are. So we know the timeline of what they were up to. But all of them were inspired by Cooper first. Let's see. Gunther. Okay. You asked me about Max Gunther. I would say that Max Gunther, I used to think it was all made up by Max Gunther. I used to think it was a total work like Andy Kaufman or something, just fiction, and it's not that rare in literature to have that sort of plot device, right? Where you're doing somebody contacted me and told me this story. I forget, there's a Truman Capote book that is very similar to that. It's his most famous book. Somebody will let me know, but it's kind of like that. It's reporting on what I'm told, but it wasn't really true. I used to think Gunther just made it all up, but then because the reason why I thought that is because there were never any FBI files about Max Gunther. You'd think he would contact the FBI going, "Hey, he did." I mean, this Clara person did contact Himmelsbach, but Himmelsbach, was retired at the time. So there's no crime in wasting the time of the FBI who's retired. But so I was like, well, if Gunther is not contacting the FBI, then this is probably a work. But a few months ago in one of our FBI FOIA releases, there we have Max Gunther saying, hey, somebody is contacting me about this, claiming that they're DB Cooper's widow. Are you guys still looking into this case? Yada, yada, yada. So now I think Gunther was hoaxed, I guess. And he believed it. So I've moved into Gunther being hoaxed. Okay. Maybe Barb Dayton, who knows? All right. Tony Clifton was DB Cooper. Well, perhaps. Was Clara Bob Dayton? I don't know. No. Could his ugliness be mistaken for age? I don't think so, because a lot of the photographs of people, of the suspects who the stewardesses are saying are too handsome, are older guys too. They're in their 50s and stuff. So I don't think it's that. Okay. Michael, I think the real DB Cooper died that night when he hit the Columbia River. Well, Michael, I guess, that would be what we would think, right? That's the logical thought, is that, well, the money's found washed up, or, well, now we think it, speaking to an actual hydrologist now, it seems to be that even he's like, I don't think this could be buried by the water, or I don't think the water could make it. Well, we know that money bundles don't float, for one thing. We've done experiments. Money bundles are going to sink to the bottom. They're not going to float. So anyway, but the problem with Cooper, Michael, with Cooper dying in the Columbia River, let me show you something. So we know where the plane was at all times that night. Okay. So when you dig into the Cooper case, let me show you this. Now, this is an approximation, but it's close enough. You can see here that this is the flight path and the time markers of where the plane was. All right. Down around 8:16, 8:17, that's the Columbia River down there. All right. Cooper is jumping, but most estimates now are about 8:13 to 8:14, I would say. At the latest, 8:15 is as late as I would be willing to go. And that puts him north of Vancouver. And you got to remember too, the Columbia River is half a mile wide, but the plane is going 3 miles a minute. So if my math is correct, Cooper, that'd be one hell of an unfortunate fall, that in the 10 seconds when that plane is over the river, he just happens to plummet down. Okay. And again, like I said, there are a myriad of reasons why Cooper, look, I'll put it this way. The best person, I would say one of the best minds on the case for flight path stuff is Chris Cunningham. Chris Cunningham would love for DB Cooper to have died that night in the river. He has tried his best to put Cooper in the river. And so when our top researcher on flight path stuff desperately wants to put Cooper in the river and can't, then he just didn't land in the river. It's just the timing. The timing is messed up on that. Okay. And there's other reasons too. The money that was found on their sandbar, it was waterlogged and had been for almost a decade. Right. But the wetness, they tested it and it had diatoms on it, as little organisms that live in the Columbia River. It had diatoms on it only for spring. Okay. If that money had been dunked in the Columbia with Cooper's body or whatever in the wintertime in November, it would have the winter species of that fungus, whatever a diatom is, right? Microorganisms. So the diatoms on the money are from spring. So it got wet in the spring. So if it was attached to Cooper, then Cooper didn't get wet in the spring either, or didn't get wet in the fall either. So, and again, also, as I've pointed out a bunch of times, the FBI agents these days, a lot of the things you hear about Cooper dying is, I'm not going to call it propaganda by the FBI, because that sounds conspiratorial, right? But it was, what else were they going to say? Essentially, I've talked to the case agents. We had one there. In fact, at CooperCon 2 weeks ago, John Detler, I should have put a lapel mic on him, but John Detler was one of the original guys there that night. He spent 2 years of his life chasing after DB Cooper as a full-time job. He was paid for years of salary for chasing Cooper in 71 and 72. And you ask him, and he told the audience at CooperCon, "Oh yeah, we all thought he lived. Of course. Yeah, of course he lived." There's no reason to think he died that night. And the FBI knew that, but what are they going to tell the media? Well, shit, I guess he got away, folks. No, I'm not going to say that. And they also didn't want to encourage copycats, which didn't work well. But they were trying to be like, look, Cooper died. So, Cooper died. So I guess that, it's like, don't do drugs, kids. So they were like, oh, Cooper died. So don't you try to do this same thing again. So that's really why the FBI said that Cooper died that night. When in actuality, the FBI at the time certainly didn't think he died. There would not be 85,000 pages of documents if they thought he was a dead man, I don't think. So why is the 816, 1817 closer than the rest? That's complicated. I mean, it's the mark. It's I'm not a flight path guy, but there is an actual reason. The timestamps, it's whatever. I can't get into it. Yeah, Jude says in cold blood, Truman Capote says Gunther's literary pattern is his takes on old classics. Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Gunther wrote his own versions of these. Yeah, that's funny. Lee Ken, yes. How could he have drowned in the Columbia if he jumped over Clay Elum? That's a Walter Recca joke for you folks. Walter Recca. All right, let's see what else we got. So, Michael, I think that Cooper may have died that night, but he didn't die by landing in the river. It's possible that he died, but I'm starting to think that my take on it is that the Tina Barr money is probably the best evidence of his survival, ironically, right? Because if you think about it, you would logically go, well, if his money is on a sandbar, washed up, quote, washed up on a sandbar, then there's the solution, right? He died. But as I said, now that we know that the money got wet in the spring and that the money, we had a hydrologist at CooperCon and he basically said, no way, a flood is not going to bury this on a sandbar, that deep, right? To where, because basically that seems like that the money eroded. So Tina Barr erodes at about, maybe somebody remembers, it was like 6 inches a year, I think. And so they predicted that the money, if it had gotten there, it was under a dredge layer, I think, from 74. So they think it was under the dredge layer. So they think that it had been there as that, not any later than 74 that the money got there. And if it was buried and eroded, then this geologist like, no way, nothing's going to bury itself like that. It's just not, and people would have seen it. I mean, this Tina Barr was where college kids went to, hook up on bed sheets and have fish fries and things. That was a cool spot to go to for people. So, but that's the irony of it is I think now also Tom Kay, the scientist, looked at the Cooper money. Not only did he find springtime diatoms and not wintertime diatoms, but recently he has found no silt. Okay. So a flood, if the money had been, if a flood had pushed the money there, okay, because Tina Barr is 8 miles away from where the flight crossed the river. So the money would have had to have, if it had fallen out of the plane or something, or fallen with Cooper, it would have had to have gone 8 miles. Okay. Well, we know for one thing, money does not float. A money bundle will sink. It gets waterlogged and just falls to the bottom of the river. But for it to get there naturally, would have required a flood of some sort, perhaps. And Tom Kay saw that the water was clean. So they call it clean immersion, which is weird. So the money got wet in like clean water, non-flood water. The money got wet in non-winter. Basically, the water got wet in spring clean water. There, spring clean water, Tina Barr. Can't explain it. But it's beginning. My opinions are, it sounds crazy, but like my opinions are beginning to think that Tina Barr, that Cooper, or somebody buried that money there. Now, I don't think obviously it wasn't that night, because that's not the Eric Eulis thing. Cooper did not jump anywhere near Tina Barr, people. Okay. We can forget that, but it seems like somebody put it there. I don't know why. Part of me, I'll say this, the most far out I'll go on this case. I'm a real realist. Everyone who knows me, I don't do conspiracy stuff. I don't like, well, isn't it a coincidence? Ooh. I don't like that. But because yeah, lots of things are coincidences. There's lots of coincidences in the FBI files, people. But one of the things that, as far as I'll go on coincidences, to go, well, maybe, is that maybe the money was put there as an homage to Tina Mucklow. It sounds crazy, but consider this. If Alice Hancock had been the person who took, and she tried, actually, Alice Hancock went back there in the back of the plane. She was the senior stewardess. She tried to swap places with Cooper, or with Tina. And Cooper called her out and said, "Miss, go back to your station. I like this one," essentially. So he kept Tina. If it had been Alice Hancock who had sat with him for 5 hours, and years later we find money buried behind Alice's restaurant, I mean, wouldn't we go, oh, what the hell's that about, right? So Tina Bar, it's spelled differently, but still it's called Tina Bar. So money being buried at Tina Bar, I don't know, cute. I mean, maybe he buried it expecting it to be found a lot sooner than it was. If he buried it, I mean, like I said, that's as far as I'll be willing to go and theorize on a theory. And that sounds wackadoodle, but if it was buried there intentionally, then why the hell would that be buried there? That makes no sense. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Welcome to the dark side, Ryan. I don't know. Maybe Tina put it there. No, Tina rejected the money, allegedly. I think she did, of course, but she could have. I guess they weren't going to frisk. They weren't going to frisk Tina Mucklow, were they? I mean, I guess she could have walked off the plane with that money. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Tina Mucklow, Cooper's stewardess, when the money arrives in a cloth bag, Dan, not a leather bag. When the money arrives, she jokes with Cooper. She goes, "Hey, there's a lot of money in that bag. Can I have some?" He goes, "Sure." And he reaches in and hands her either a packet or a bundle. A bundle would have been $10,000. A packet would have been $2,000. I've read 3 different interviews with Tina, and it's kind of hard to get a gauge on it. I'm starting to think that he handed her a packet, not a bundle. So I think he handed her a packet, and I think he tried to hand Alice Hancock a packet, and both rejected it, which is funny because he definitely offers Florence Schaffner $19. So I don't know if he didn't like Florence or what, but it sounds like he offered Tina and Alice $2,000 a piece. But Flo says that before she gets off the plane, she says, "Can we go?" And I don't think he liked Flo. But she goes, "Can we go?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Whatever you girls would like." "Well, we want to get the hell off the plane." "Okay, fine." So as Flo turns to walk off, this is all in Flo's testimony. Go to my website, norjack.org. You can read Flo's own account. This is her interview 15 minutes after getting off the plane, right? It's all fresh to her. So Flo is talking about something that happened literally 20 minutes ago. So it's pretty, fresh. She goes, "Yeah, the guy just offered me." She said, as I was leaving, he goes, "Hey, wait a minute." He digs in his pocket and he hands her $19, or tries to offer her $19. It's the money. So I like to joke that Cooper was the first passenger served that night. Okay. He was the first passenger to be served alcohol on the plane. And I like to joke that he was already inconveniencing poor Florence Schaffner before the hijacking even began, because he tries to pay her he does pay her with a $20 bill. So it was a $1 drink. So imagine you're buying a beer at a bar and you hand them a $100 bill. That's kind of the equivalent of 20 to 100 these days. Like, what? You're paying for a beer with a $100 bill? So she goes, "Well, sir, I don't have the change for this. I need to serve the rest of the customers first, and then I'll come back and we can do it there. And so, and I'll give you the money back." So she says in her 302, in her interview, she goes, I noticed it was the money that I had already brought him. It was the change. So he's giving her $19. I don't know if that's Cooper being cute or he played games with Flo a little bit. He made her pick up the money bag famously. He goes, "Hey, pick this money bag up. Isn't it heavy?" And she gets kind of pissy about it. She calls him immature and childish, essentially, for doing it. She didn't like being messed with. Let's see. PR arguing about something. FBI lied about Cooper. I trust Tina. What was the lie about Cooper? What did they lie? What is this about, Steve? Yeah, let me know. She would have never taken possession of an entire bundle. Yeah, I mean, I think he offered her a packet for sure. Was Cooper alone with Tina's purse? Actually, yes. Interesting. I think. Sure, actually. Probably. So, I'll be damned. Never thought about that. But yeah, he would have been. So the stewardesses who worked in the tourist cabin of 727s for Northwest Orient, we've asked them where they put their money or where they put their purses. Because famously, Flo, when she rejects the $19 he offers her, she gets the hell out of Dodge. But then about 5 minutes later, she comes back on the plane because she had forgot her purse back there. And she approaches Cooper and says, "Hey, I forgot my purse. Can I get it?" And he goes, "Yes, I won't bite." Cute, funny old man. He goes, "I won't bite." Dad joke, right? But it's kind of weird. You're wondering, well, why is she awkwardly being like, "Can I get my purse?" And it's because I learned this, that I ran into a Northwest Orient stewardess who's in her 80s who knew Flo and Tina and them. And I said, "Where did you put your purse?" Just because I wanted to know where Flo was getting her purse. Why was it such an awkward thing to get her purse? And she said, "Well, we hid our purses in the oxygen tank, like drawer. So there, I don't have it with me right now, but like there is right behind. So picture the last row of Cooper's seat, picture the last row. In fact, I might have a picture actually. Yeah, right here. So you can't see it because it's below it, but this is a photo of Cooper's row, right? So if you go a little bit lower or a little bit lower behind that seat with the six sticker, behind that seat is a little drawer that pulls out, and it's where the oxygen tanks are stored. And that's where they would keep their purses. So Flo, think about this. Cooper is sitting in that seat right there because at this point, Cooper would have had his parachute on and he was sitting in that seat, 18D. And so she basically had to like squat and reach behind him, like reach behind his butt, basically. So that is why it was kind of an awkward encounter because she had to squeeze past him a little bit. So presumably, if Tina did not get her purse and Cooper knew that that's where they kept their purses, then I guess he could have done that. Interesting. I mean, did the FBI no, the FBI would not have searched Tina's purse. Hell no. I don't know that for a fact, but highly unlikely. They would have done that to a victim at the time, right? Interesting. Never thought of that. I'm a little shook there. That's an interesting thought that he had. I mean, it sounds so conspiratorial, but like, it sounds so silly, really. But I mean, Cooper would have had access to her purse. Interesting. He could have checked for ID inside the purses. Yeah, he could have. I mean, it's also possible. Well, no, yeah, I don't think so. So, Tina didn't expect to be sent to the front. So I don't think that she had her purse with her. She was surprised because she thought she was going to be back there for a while. So she's getting panicked because Cooper's like, "Hey, lower these stairs for me." And like, this is the only time Tina loses her cool a little bit. She's really scared about being sucked out the plane when those stairs go down. And she's probably even maybe crying a little bit. I don't know, something. But Cooper eventually is like, "Fine, just go away." He like, go away. I'll do it. He says, I'll do it myself. He sends her to the front. So it was a shock. So it wasn't like she was prepared to go to the front. So yeah, I bet her purse was back there. But yeah, but he would have to know whose purse it was. Well, you could look at her photograph. I mean, her passport was in there, or her driver's license. So, he could have seen her. I don't know. I mean, that's far out. That's a far out theory, but hey, man, we're 53 years later. We're having to come up with far out crap, right? Okay. Let's see. What else are we talking about? The FBI. That's an interesting thought. I mean, what's funny about that is that Tina was living not too far away from Portland in 1980 when the money was found. Interestingly enough, that was when she had moved to the convent there. Darren here. Darren, is this the Darren from Darren? Let me know are you the Darren from I'm a stutterer myself. Minneapolis. Is this you, Darren? Let me know. My gut feel is the money was buried by someone who didn't want to be caught with it rather than someone hiding it for later retrieval. Maybe an accomplice, but whoever buried it wasn't coming back. Yeah, I've had that thought too, that it was maybe money paid to an accomplice who, once he learned that the money was, that the serial numbers were recorded, he ditched it somehow. Although I guess you could just throw it in the river. I mean, throw it in the river, throw it in the weeds, burn it, be the best way to get rid of it. But maybe he was panicked or something. Yeah, I've had that thought, Darren, myself, that it was an accomplice's payment. All right. Okay, Darren, you're in Australia. Okay. Well, there's a Darren who was at CooperCon who is not on Facebook. Let's see. How long did Tina spend alone with Cooper? She would know 100% what he looked like. Maybe not though. She spent five hours with Cooper, sitting next to him, alone with Cooper. About an hour. So Flo and Alice leave about 6:40. They're off the plane. And the plane takes off at 7:36 and Tina is sent to the front around 7:40. So about an hour. Nikki says that was Greg. I thought that was, anyway. So yeah, he had about an hour alone with her back there where it was just them two. I mean, they were talking on the phone, but she spent 5 hours sitting next to the guy. So again, if you're like, oh, it's McCoy wearing makeup or something, bullshit. Sorry to cuss, but I mean, ridiculous. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you take down the pic? I get, everybody else see my face. I forget that I have photographs up. People remind me. Thank you for that. That reminds me of the photograph I kept up. I have a problem with that. I kept up at CooperCon last year. I kept up a photograph that was grisly of a hijacker whose head was blown off. And I forgot that it was up there the whole time. I was just rambling like I'm doing now, and had a Maddie, teenager, she may have been a preteen at the time. I don't know, but one of the girls there came up, and afterwards she was like, "What happened to that guy's head?" And I was like, "Oh, that's what a 12 gauge does to your head." Because it's basically like it wasn't really gory. It was just like, it's what was that guy's name? Merlin St. George, a hijacker, was killed in Poughkeepsie, New York. He was a Cooper copycat. There's a photograph of him laying dead on the ground. He didn't want to jump. He got scared. So he asked for a getaway car. And when he got in the getaway car with the stewardess, an FBI agent just walked up, put a 12 gauge to his head and pulled the trigger. And that would not have been a good sight for the stewardess there. But he head falls off, and they grab him and drag him out of the car. And there's a photograph of him laying dead there on his stomach. And it's a guy wearing a coat, and there's no head. Just not gory, but there's just no head. It's gone. So poor girl was like, "What happened to that guy's head?" And I was like, "Well," so had to say that. But Jay, the problem with Tina and her memory of what Cooper looked like is that we have Tina many times saying that she was not. Let me pull that up. Let me pull this up for you guys. We have Tina many times just saying, "I didn't get a good look at him." because she was not looking at it. She was purposely avoiding his gaze, or she was purposely avoiding looking at him directly because she was afraid of antagonizing him. And I've got that somewhere. Let me pull that up. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so we can read this. This is Tina. She says, oh, wait. Let's bring down your comment there. Where is Jay's comment about Tina? I got to get your comment. There we go. It says, Tina Mucklow, she pointed out that during her contact with Cooper, he, for the most part, was seated on her side so that she only saw his profile. She never observed him from straight ahead, and most of the time he was whispering in her ear, and therefore she was not in a good position to observe his facial features in great detail. She admitted that because of the time lapse, she is getting somewhat foggy in recalling his exact appearance, and has looked at the artist's conception so often, she feels that she is influenced by it. Interesting comment there from Tina, saying that that was in 1972. That was when they were making the second sketch. She's like, it's getting foggy on me. And it's interesting when she says that was influenced by the sketch, because Bill Mitchell said that at CooperCon 2 weeks ago. I've talked to Bill a lot, but I've never heard Bill say this. Bill said that it bothered him because he felt that his brain was picturing the sketch, because he had seen the sketch so often that it became his memory of Cooper, right? Not the real Cooper. And that's why I am all about, that's why I am a composition A person. I mean, I think this is our best sketch of Cooper, without a doubt. The guy behind me. I mean, this is it. This is the only sketch made with all of the three stewardesses sitting there with the artist drawing this from scratch. So if you want to bitch about his nose looking weird, well, Roy Rose, the artist, didn't just invent that. They told him, they agreed, the three of them, that that's what his nose should look like. So Cooper had a little bitty nose, apparently. So this is our only sketch. And this sketch was made 2 days after the hijacking. That's it. And this sketch was approved by everybody. A couple of people said maybe his nose should be a little wider, but that's about it. All the Bill Mitchell said this looks good. I mean, I would say our four best witnesses, Bill and the three stewardesses, said this looks good. Now this is a little washed out. The original, it's interesting. I've actually FOIA'd for the original to get a high resolution. It hasn't come yet. I'm excited for it to come out because I'll show it to you, all you guys. But I'm excited to see a high resolution of the original art sketch, because it's going to have a lot more wrinkles in the face. So now's the problem, is this guy looks young because he looks unwrinkled. And think about this in a newspaper, right? You're not going to get all the details in a newspaper. His face is going to be washed out. So he's going to look younger in a washed out paper than he is in the real sketch. In the real sketch, I think there's more wrinkles in his face and in his crow's feet and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what the actual sketch is going to look like. There's going to be a lot more wrinkles. He's going to look older, I think. The problem was the papers washed the features out, and he just looked like a younger guy. Could someone in the airport ID him? I think I have some. Speaking of that, I have something to show you guys that is really cool. Okay. Let me do this. I'll have to do this for y'all. This is in real time. I had forgotten to do this. So I took y'all bear with me, talk amongst yourselves, or I'll ramble about some things. Let's see. So we were wondering about, where is it? Here we go. All right. We're wondering about whether, somebody on the drop zone, which is the message board, was asking about whether Cooper signed his ticket, right? We're like, well, no. We're like, because that signature says Dan Cooper on the ticket. So we're thinking, well, did Cooper write his own ticket? Is that his handwriting? Well, it's not his own handwriting. We know that for a fact now, that it is not his own handwriting. But what's interesting is I took a high resolution photograph, or I took a scan. Bill Mitchell let me take a scan of his ticket, So we actually have a really high resolution scan of Bill Mitchell's ticket now. And let me show you guys what I thought is pretty cool. Let me see. Let me upload it for you guys. And you guys are going to like this. I think it's cool. I mean, it's kind of a mystery, not a mystery, but it's something that we kind of, that I discovered just today, actually. I was like, oh, I'll be damned. That, so the ticket agent was Dennis List. I still don't know how to say his name. I think it's Lindsay. I think it's Listney. Dennis Listney was the ticket agent. Listney was a cool guy. He flew 50 missions as a tail gunner in World War II on a B-24. Anyway, so Dennis Listney is the ticket agent. Now, you think ticket agent, like you think of like some, 25-year-old girl or guy or something, right? But I guess he was in charge of it. I don't know. But anyway, Listney was there, and he writes out. He's the one who sees Cooper, and Cooper says Cooper, Dan Cooper, to Listney, right? And Listney writes the ticket out and hands it to him. Well, turns out that Bill Mitchell's ticket was also signed by Dennis Listney. So Dennis Listney was also checked out Bill Mitchell, which is kind of cool. You can tell that they're writing. If you look at 305, where it's got like where the writing is for 305 there in the middle, that's the same handwriting, of course. So Dennis Listney wrote Bill Mitchell's ticket. And yeah, you can see the youth fare. He paid $13 for his ticket. Cooper paid $20 because he was certainly not a youth. Bill, though, got the youth fare. Yeah, I would love to interview Rick McCoy, Jay. I mean, absolutely. Good God, I would love to interview Rick McCoy. Love it. They're good people. But yeah, let me see if there's any differences there. Oh, there you go. Okay. So there's something cool. The printing on the name is different. I don't think so. Nikki. There's no common letters. Unfortunately, I was like, oh my God, really? I tried to find common letters in W.M. Mitchell and Dan Cooper, and there's not. Ain't that a bummer, right? But you can look at the the numbers are similar. If you look at the twos, the way he does the twos, look at the twos on next to 305 in those blocks there for the date 11/24. It's written the same way. It's the same person. All right. But this is something I just noticed as we're looking at this, because I was going to do a comparison just on my own free time, and I'm doing this for the first time live now. I noticed that Bill, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Bill was 4 people after. There were 3 people. If you look at the top right corner, Bill's lucky sevens. Look at that. Bill 777, Cooper 773. So Cooper was 4 people in front of Bill to purchase his ticket. It's too bad there's no timestamp. That'd have been really cool if we could see the timestamp on Cooper's. If we could do the timestamps, but there's no timestamp for it, I don't think. Yeah. You can see their status, time, date, 305, youth. So, well, no, 305. No. What do you mean no on Cooper's? What do you mean no, Dodge? What are you talking about? No exclamation point on Cooper's? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, that was pretty cool, huh? I'd like a handwriting expert to look at it. I mean, it looks like the same chicken scratch to me, dude. You know? I mean, like I said, there's no common letters. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Anyway. Yeah, we can look at it, but I think it's the same, Nikki. I mean, the numbers are absolutely the same. They're different. So, I mean, the numbers are the same. So it's, Cooper had a Y and Bill's got a Z for some reason. Yes, both written by Gryder. That's right. It's a forgery. Zip codes. What are we talking about? Zip codes. Oh. Are those the zip codes? Okay, well, no, because so 91204 is a zip code for Glendale, California. So no, those not zip codes. That's a good thought. That'd be cool to see what zip code if he had given him some fake zip code where he says not good for passage. So interesting. There are differences in the tickets. Yeah, there's definitely differences. Because, okay, so I wonder if, okay, so I guess that's the difference. Okay, so they use a stamp. Okay, so form of payment. Look at that. So yeah. Why was Dan Cooper's ticket $7 more? Because it's a youth fair. Bill Mitchell was 20 years old. He was a college student. This was a college fair. Yeah, so it looks like because Cooper paid with cash. So I guess if he paid with cash, they would, where it says form of payment on the right side, that they would, I guess they had a stamp, right? If you paid with cash, but whereas form of payment, they had a credit card. So, because Bill said he used a credit card to pay. So I guess they wrote down something with credit card. I don't know if that means those numbers, but. Anyway. Cool, huh? All right. We'll get off of this. But I thought I would share that with everybody. Mitchell got the youth fair. You think Bill Mitchell is DB Cooper? Well, can't be doing that. All right. So, but yeah, we can talk more about, if we want to, about the Gryder parachute. Although I don't have enough to talk about it because, there's a funny story. I'll tell you all a funny story about Bill that he mentioned. Bill said that, so it was a tradition in his family. He had a bunch of brothers and sisters who were older than him. He was the youngest. So it was a tradition in their big family that you didn't get a car until you were a senior in college. And you didn't get a car until you were a senior in college. Well, Bill was sent back to the University of Oregon after Thanksgiving with a car because they didn't want him to fly anymore. And something else I'll share. Let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see if I've got it somewhere. I hope I have that letter. Where I'll have to get it. So what's funny is there's a letter. Bill brought a letter I'd never seen before to CooperCon. It was a letter from Northwest Orient to his family. His mom apparently had sent. His mom had apparently sent a thank you note to Northwest Orient for taking care of. It's like, thank you for taking care of my son. That sort of stuff, right? And let me see if I can find this for you guys. Yeah, well, there it is, but it's hard to. Yeah, so basically, here we go. It's kind of funny. So Bill Mitchell's mom sends a letter saying thank you to Northwest Orient, and they respond. They send a letter back, and we have it dated December 6th. It says, and this is clearly a template letter that they just send to everybody. Like they didn't know this was like the hijacked kid. It is, Dear Mrs. Mitchell, it was a pleasure to read your letter of November 26th concerning Northwest Orient. We place a great deal of emphasis on passenger service, and it is gratifying to learn that our personnel were able to contribute to the enjoyment of Flight 305. I have forwarded a copy of your letter to our Director of In-Flight Services, as he may personally commend them. I know they will appreciate your thoughtfulness. We enjoyed having you and your family as our customers and look forward to serving you on your future travels. I just got hijacked. So what's funny is that it does say I have forwarded a copy of your letter to the director. Well, clearly the next day, another letter shows up from the Vice President of Public Relations saying, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, it was thoughtful of you to take the time to write us, expressing your views on the conduct of Captain Scott and his crew. We share your feelings that their actions reflected great concern for the safety of the passengers and great credit on Northwest Airlines. We are indeed proud of them. Cool, huh? But it's funny that like the first letter she gets from Northwest Orient's like, we're glad that we're glad you enjoyed your flight. It's like, well, that's not why I was writing, but okay. So I thought that was cool. Cool display there. All right. So let's talk about the parachutes again. I was going to say my parachute's back there, but I will show the video again. Remember, we're looking for Cooper's parachute. If it's ever found, is going to be able to slide. The fastener is going to be able to slide up and down, just like that. Dan Gryder's parachute has a fastener that is attached. That is an Air Force parachute. Okay. We're looking for a Ford Mustang. He found a Buick, not Cooper's parachute. No universe is this Cooper's parachute. And I think the thing that's most remarkable about Dan Gryder's thing is that it doesn't even match the lie. Right? It's like, not only does it not match like the actual case evidence, but he's holding up Cossey's nonsense to Bruce Smith in 2008 as what he is using for his guide for this being Cooper's parachute. Well, it doesn't even match that. So like, it doesn't even match the bullshit. It's ridiculous. Glad we all have autism about this too. Yeah, I know. Leon, what are you not sold? What are you not what are you not sold on, Leon? Leon, do I have to convince you more? I have to go into because I can go into more details on there's things I left out of I didn't want to go nuts on the video. There are some things I left out of there. The Canopy. I mean, he acts like that's Cooper's Canopy. Hell no. That's not Cooper's Canopy. We know that Cooper's Canopy, here's some things here. Let me try to find here we go, right here. I'll show you this. I'll show you these two things. I left these out. I don't want to get into the Canopy on my video because I thought that would be too, not so. I mean, I think it would be too detailed to go into Canopy discussion. But this is a shot of the Canopy that he's like, oh, this is Cooper's Canopy. You can see there it says Canopy assembled 1943, July 43. Well, for one thing, we have Cooper's packing card. We know that his Canopy was from July 1960. All right. Number two thing that's wrong with that is, let's see, where is it that I did this? I've got a thing where Cossey is talking about canopies. Is this it? Hang on a second. Sorry, folks. I should have these things already ready for you guys, but I don't. Let's see. Here we go. Yep. So Cossey was taking a Canopy one time, and they said, is this Cooper's Canopy? He goes, no, because it's pre-1945. So he says here, so Cossey, talking about a parachute found by a Greyhound bus, I guess. I don't know. No, found in the woods. Oh, the parachute was coming by Greyhound. But Cossey says that this parachute, that the parachute that Cooper used, the Canopy, was made of ripstop material, which is true, and it was not invented until after 1945. Well, 1943. Not that we needed any more evidence that Gryder's full of crap on this stuff, but the Canopy's wrong too. So, oops. Hitting all these buttons. Anyway, so the Canopy, they call the chute 1 in a billion. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's Gryder is calling it 1 in a billion. Gryder's just ridiculous. No, Gryder is just no. Well, there's nothing too, Jay. You said that crazy how much the facts change every year. Well, the facts don't change. All right. Cossey is consistent. Cossey is totally consistent with in the FBI. I've never seen Cossey to be dishonest or lie in the FBI files. He's always consistent. He begins to make up bullcrap in the 2000s for some reason. I think that Cossey may even believe his own crap, because imagine how many times Cossey probably like bragged to people at jump centers. It's what his job, his life I mean, he taught school, but he's also a big skydiving guy. Imagine how many times he told the story. Probably started telling the story in the mid 70s. Oh, it was my parachute, right? Wasn't one that I just sold. It was my parachute. I bet he told that story so many times, maybe it became the truth to him. I don't know, but thank God we have the files, right? Okay. Michael says, does the FBI have a complete Cooper profile? No, they don't. They don't even have Cooper's DNA, I don't think. They found what they did I guess a vacuum suck thing on the tie in 2002 maybe. And they recovered three partial profiles, one major contributor, two minor contributors. So three people had DNA on the tie that they were able to find. But the problem is they're so partial that essentially millions of people are going to yes, Leon, you can ask a question. Millions of people are going to connect to it. So Larry Carr, the FBI agent, called them when he got the case in 2007 and called the crime lab saying, hey, will you educate me about this DNA you have on Cooper? And they basically said it's garbage. It's junk DNA. It stinks. There's nothing you can do with it. And the tie was so contaminated. That tie was put in the mail like a dozen times, sent back and forth. I mean, within the first month after the hijacking, the tie was taken. Let's just play this out, okay? And I write about this in the book. This chain of custody thing with the tie. The tie is garbage, in my opinion, as far as DNA goes. And Colleen Fitzpatrick, who one of the leading DNA specialists in the world for this sort of stuff, spoke at CooperCon, and she agreed it's garbage. Tie is garbage. But basically, in 71, let's see, Cooper leaves his tie on the plane. They take the tie, Reno FBI pick up the tie, or Vegas FBI, haul it down to Vegas. Then, like a few days later, they take the tie to a Vegas penny store, show the tie, not wearing gloves, of course, or anything like that. They show the tie to a guy at Penny's and say, hey, do you sell these? And they go, oh, we sold those a couple years ago. We don't sell that fashion anymore. Skinny tie. No, we don't sell these anymore. They put it in the mail to the Portland FBI office. This is all in the FBI files. Portland FBI office opens the bag. They take it to their Penny's. Do you sell these? Did you sell this to anybody recently? No. They send it to Seattle. Seattle goes to their local Penny's. Okay. Then in 72, they send it to the crime lab. Crime lab handles it. Crime lab's looking for fluids on it. They find no fluids on it. They send it back to Seattle. Okay. Then every now and then, whenever there was some good suspect, they would, like, just say, for example, I know in one instance, there was a suspect out of LA, still never learned this guy's name. I'd like to learn his name. He shows up a lot. I'd love to know his name, but they went full court press on this suspect, but I don't know who he was. But they sent the tie down to LA to show to this guy's his ex-wife. So the tie, they don't show it to the ex-wife for 3 months. So this tie presumably sits on the desk of an agent, I guess, or in a drawer for 3 months. Then they go and take it to this lady, and she goes, yeah, my husband never wore a tie like that. Okay, thank you. They put it in the mail, goes back to Portland or to Seattle office, and they do this a bunch. I mean, like, this happens several times in the FBI files. That thing has been passed around like crazy. So that's what's going on with that. So the tie stinks. Tie is bad evidence. Okay. Okay. Leon, his question is, are there any real implications to solving this case, or is it just because it's fascinatingly unsolved? It could be solved if we find the hair slide. So Cooper, if you've seen my videos, they got the cigarette butts, but those were destroyed in 71. They got rid of those for lacking evidentiary value. So the cigarettes were tossed in the trash, literally tossed in the trash. Those would have great DNA on them. One of those would be Tina Mucklow's DNA because she smoked one of Cooper's cigarettes. He offered her a cigarette and she took it, smoked it. So one's Tina's, and there's one Tina cigarette, 7 Cooper cigarettes. They're in the trash. They did pick up an arm hair and a head hair somehow from the back of his headrest. So they mounted that on a microscopic slide. Okay. They used it for hair comparisons against suspects to see is this hair. They could look at a microscope and, it's junk science now. It's called hair microscopy. The FBI had to recant on that. And I think a dozen or so people got new trials because that's what was used to convict them. And the trials, it was thrown out. So it's junk science now, but that's what they used it for back then. And it was for hair samples, hair things. And Orville Lions, interesting enough, Orville Lions, the guy I talked about earlier, the guy in Mississippi, he was the last suspect to have his hair. They did it for McCoy, by the way. By the way, McCoy's hair was examined. It's another knock against McCoy. His hair was examined. Now it's junk science, perhaps, but his hair was examined. But Lions in 1984 was the last time that hair slide was ever seen. So all we have, the last instance the hair slide shows up with Cooper's hair is the crime lab is sending it back to Seattle. Back to Vegas in 1984. And that's it. Missing. Now, Colleen Fitzpatrick, the DNA specialist, she's convinced that's the only hope we have for identifying Cooper. And I tend to agree, probably. We would know we would have a very clear DNA profile, not a partial profile. We have a full profile from a strand of hair, 100%. In fact, that's how Colin Fitzpatrick talked about this. That's how they identified the Somerton man. Is the Somerton man, if you remember that mystery, the guy who was found dead on the beach in Australia. They made a death mask for him when he died. When he was dead, they did a death mask for him in 1947 or something, whenever that was. And they were able to extract a hair from his death mask 2 years ago. And that's how they figured out who he is. So that's kind of the hope with Cooper. That's the thought. Okay. What about the chutes? What about the DNA on the chutes he left behind? Possibly. But the problem is, maybe. They've been handled. All of that has been handled a lot. That's the problem. That's what Colin Fitzpatrick's saying. They've been handled too much. Essentially, the parachutes, because people were boxing them and pulling them out and all kinds of things like that. Arm hair, where they both shipped on the Lions test. So the arm hair and the head hair are mounted on the same slide, apparently. So, and we have that evidence number. Will there be a flight path video coming up? Yeah, well, I guess so. If Chris wants to do one with me. Chris is the flight path guy. Michael, our new guy, had a question. Let me find him. Michael. Oh, yeah, I answered your question, didn't I? That's the DNA question. Dan Cooper Sleuth. Yeah. Let's see. Did he have a grudge? Well, look, I'm a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor, and most criminals have grudges. It's never their fault, right? It's never their fault why they're criminals. They had a bad childhood, and sometimes that does contribute, trauma and things. But every criminal's got an excuse. I like to think that having a grudge, that line is think about it this way. If you're Cooper, I think Cooper knew what cool was, for sure. I think Cooper understood what he wanted to look cool. I think he knew the value of looking smooth and behaving a certain way. Having the girl light your cigarettes for you, come on, he's a cool guy, even though his suit didn't match really, but he was trying to be cool, I think. And, Tina says, sir, and Tina put that word in her mouth too. She says, do you have a grudge against our airlines or our airline? And he goes, no, miss, I don't have a grudge against your airline. I just have a grudge. Well, that's a lot cooler than saying, well, no, miss, I don't have a grudge against your airline. I'm just a dirty thief. I'm a bank robber. I'm a clever bank robber, which is what Cooper is. That's kind of what we need to get to, people. It's like, people feel free to disagree. That's just my opinion, but this is a bank robbery. It's a clever bank robbery. But if you don't think your suspect had it in them to rob a bank, then they're probably not Cooper, because you can make money other ways if you're smart or whatever. I mean, there are other things you can embezzle money, right? There's whatever. Cooper was a bank robber, essentially, risking being shot by the FBI if they storm the plane or something. He's not a white collar criminal. I know that we think he is because he's wearing a suit, but I don't view him as white collar. I mean, he had a tie that was nasty and covered in mining chemicals. I mean, I don't know if you would say middle management in mining is white collar. It's kind of a rough and tumble kind of business. But men wore ties back then to work. If you were a manager, it denoted your status. It was like wearing chevrons as a sergeant, right? You wore a tie if you were a manager of some sort. So I think he was middle management. Maybe it's doing something. I don't know. But all right. I believe McCoy was a person like you, fascinated by DB, but the difference was he wanted to be him. So he copied him step by step to try to be like Cooper. Well, what's interesting is that Richard LaPointe was the first Cooper copycat. Richard LaPointe is the one who looks like, let me try to pull up a picture of LaPointe. LaPointe's the one who looks like McConaughey's character in, what is that? Dazed and Confused. Yeah, let me pull up a picture of LaPointe. Where's old Rich? He has the best photo ever. Here we go. Yep. This is him after he gets arrested, jumping out of the plane. It's like, hey, man. All right. Looks like Wooderson in Dazed and Confused. His handcuffs. Like, oh, I did it. Well, this guy, he was a bit messed up from the war, but he was a Cooper obsessive. At his trial, they noted that in his room, he had DB Cooper stuff hanging on the wall, newspapers and things. So he was a fanboy of Cooper, really. And he's the first copycat. It's in January of 1972. So he's less than 2 months after Cooper. He does his hijacking. So that's LaPointe. And yeah, we've got McCoy being fascinated by Cooper and writing a paper on it. So then we've got McNally, our real criminal. McNally was literally casing a Brinks truck. I love this story. Mac is in his car watching a Brinks truck. He's like casing it to go rob it. And he hears about Cooper on the news radio and goes, that's a better way to make a score than this. So that's why he does his hijacking. So everybody's got their different motives. Okay. Cooper probably had a military background. Oh yeah, for sure. That's his age. I mean, of course, this guy's in his 40s. I'm thinking about, if Cooper is 45 or whatever, then he was in World War II age or Korea. It was rare for a man to not be in the military back then, right? They had the draft and everything. I mean, World War II, Korea, even the peacetime draft, we got drafted still, So, do I think a full-scale reenactment of what we know could shed some light on the case? We've done some, I would call it, I guess, experimental archaeology or something. I don't know. I mean, we've got people have done tests on burying rubber bands in sand, throwing money in the rivers, real money in rivers to see if it floats. I think Chris Cunningham, I don't know if Chris is watching. I don't think Chris buried his money. Maybe he did or threw it. Chris had a money bag that he brought. We went on a Columbia River boat tour. Thank you to Tessa for that. We went on a Columbia River boat tour the day before CooperCon, and Chris was gonna basically throw a money bag with. He had a tracker in it, and he had like a business card or something all over it that said, like, look, if you find this, call me and I'll PayPal you a reward. Because he wanted to see if Cooper's money bag, because he thinks Cooper, the money bag may have dropped, got stuck or something, and who knows? But the money bag, if he's wondering if the money bag could lay on the shoreline of the Columbia River, just sit there with no one noticing it for years, perhaps. But we don't think the money bag would have been there for years. Speaking of experiments, John Higgins, a guy on our Facebook group, again, official DB Cooper, go on Facebook, official DB Cooper group, hit request, then refresh, you're automatically in. Also check out DB Cooper Mystery Group on Facebook. Join both those groups. Okay. But John Higgins did an experiment where he got a original, like mine back there. That's an original, same size as Cooper's bank bag. John Higgins got one and sacrificed it to the gods of Cooper. He put rocks in it, equivalent weight, and put it in his pond in his backyard for 6 months or something. And as soon as he touched it, it just fell apart. It was gone. And the money came pouring out, or the rocks came pouring out, or whatever. So it didn't hold up in water. So we were thinking, well, maybe the money bag could hold up in water, but I don't know. So let's see. Yeah, Leon, come back. This will be a podcast. Leon, come back and check us out. You got to run. Why is the canopy so pristine? He's talking about the Dan Gryder canopy. I mean, come on. Nothing about Gryder. Nothing about that is nothing about the Gryder thing is. I mean, thankfully, thanks to Nikki, I saw Darren Revelle and his 2 million followers. I know Darren Revelle did a post about it. Darren Revelle, he got 2 million followers. He posted my video, which was great. Kind of cool to see. I mean, all I cared about was that Dan saw it. I'm not saying I'm not petty, but all I cared about was that Dan saw my video. That's all. Dan should not have picked a fight with me. I don't know why he did that. That was dumb. Okay. I've never even mentioned his name, I don't think, on this channel before. Let's see. What do you think happened to the real shooting money, Ryan? Do you think Cooper lived or died that night? He lived. I'm almost certain. Okay, so my thinking, and we had a smoke jumper and Air America fella named Lee Gossett, who's in his late 80s. He was there at CooperCon, and he actually thought my theory sounded the most reasonable. He's like, that's what I would do. My thought is you land your Cooper, either you have an accomplice or you don't, but the main thing is you get back to your vehicle somewhere. Either, let's think about this. Okay. Cooper jumps out, unclear where he's going to land. There's no way, literally impossible for Cooper to know exactly where he was. He could have, I think he may have known what county he was in. That's about as close as you can get. I think he knew he was outside Portland. He would have been able to see the lights of Portland in the distance. I'm pretty sure about where he jumped. He would have been able to through the clouds. So he knew he knew it was close to Portland. So he knows he's in Clark County, Washington. So you jump out and you don't know where you are. So you land. And if you have an accomplice, you immediately stash your stuff somewhere. You take the parachute off, get the money bag, stash it under leaves or something, and make sure you remember where you left it. All right. Then you go walking, figure out where you are. Where the hell am I? Well, the best thing to do is to figure out which way is, especially if you have an idea of where you are, figure out which way is west and start walking west. And eventually you'll run into I-5. All right. And that's a good way to figure out where you are. Or if he just starts walking down a road, finds a road and just figures out where he is, eventually get to a payphone, or not a payphone, well, a phone, maybe a payphone. Remember, they only checked long distance. They did check the payphones in Clark County, all of them, for that night, but they only flagged long distance calls. So he could have called somebody locally and it wouldn't have been a problem, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe they did check everybody. I feel like they only checked long distance calls for some reason. But anyway, call your accomplice. Hey, I'm outside Joe's Crab Shack over here in Orchards. Can you come get me? Or come get me now, right? So bro comes and picks him up. They go back to the stash spot. And if Cooper's alone, somehow hikes him. And you're walking. You can walk 4 or 5 miles an hour. He gets back to his car or wherever he left his car. I imagine if I'm Cooper, I'm taking a bus or a taxi to the airport. I'm leaving my car somewhere else. Cooper gets to his car, drives to his stash spot, and possibly if I'm heading south, which I think probably was. I mean, there's less stuff north than south, right? So if you're heading south, you're going to drive back over the Columbia River Bridge. And let's just say it's 2 or 3 in the morning right now. No traffic, probably. Back then, no threat of any CCTV cameras catching you, nothing. Well, you pull your happy ass over on the side of the road on the bridge, pop your trunk, and throw your parachute and canopy into the damn river. All right? Because that gets rid of your evidence, right? And if they never find it, then that's great. Mission accomplished. They never found the canopy or the whatever. And if they do find it eventually, well, they're just going to presume that you went in the river, aren't they? It's kind of a win-win. So, and the reason that that's important is because famously in our Cooper world, there was a canopy spotted on the next to the railroad bridge, hung up on some rocks on the shoreline next to the railroad bridge. And it was called into the police department about a week after the hijacking, and the police brushed it off. It was a white canopy, same as Cooper's. Most canopies weren't white back then. Military canopies were white. And it was a military veteran who saw it and said, hey, that's a military canopy, and called the police, Vancouver PD. And Vancouver PD said, oh, well, all that's up in aerial. Then the skyjacker jumped 30 miles away from here. Now, we know now that's not where Cooper jumped. We know Cooper jumped much further south than that. But at the time, that's what they thought it all happened. So they brushed it off. Well, if Cooper jumped up there, that's not going to be his parachute. And it was never reported to the FBI. There's no FBI files for it. So, and the story goes that when the guy went back there like the next day or two to go look at it again, it was gone. So possibly, that would be there are coincidences in this case for sure, but a white round parachute military canopy, which is what Cooper had, hung up on rocks in the Columbia. I don't know. Good way to ditch your parachute is to throw it in the river. And I think Cooper could have done that. That's what I would have done. Honestly, it's probably what I would have done. Because I'm not driving 3 hours home or 4 hours home, 5 hours home, 8 hours home with a freaking parachute canopy in my back seat. I'm getting rid of it. He could have just left it there too. I don't know. Dan said there weren't 10 eyewitnesses. I said there are. Who's right? Well, Tina Mucklow, Florence Schaffner, Alice Hancock, Bill Mitchell, George LeBissonniere, Nancy House, Robert Gregory, Cord Harmsum Spreckle, Hal Williams, and Dennis Lisney, as well as Richard Simmons a little bit. Okay. So yeah, really have 11 actually. So yes, Dan's wrong about a lot of things. In fact, what Dan doesn't know about this case could fill up the Grand Canyon. I'll just say that. He gets nothing right. Of course he edited me out every time I talked. Of course he did. Yes. And let me tell you something else that bothers me. I think the thing that bothers me the most about that is that he keeps calling me a self-proclaimed expert. In that interview, I try to be humble. In that interview, at the beginning, he goes, so you're, and he edited this out. You're a self-proclaimed expert. I said, no. I said, look, if people want to call me a Cooper expert, then they're free to do that. That's fine. But I'm just a researcher. There's a dozen other researchers just as good as I am, yada, yada, yada. I played all that down. So he keeps calling me self-proclaimed. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I have no idea. I think he's mad at me about my McCoy video. Because he had no reason to do this to me, to dupe me onto his show just to edit me and make me look stupid. But he made an enemy, and I don't get it. I even messaged him. I was like, what's your problem, man? Why are you doing this? It wasn't just one McCoy photo, bruh. It wasn't just one McCoy photo. In fact, let's see if I can find the 302. See, the 302s don't lie, man. We got the evidence. Let me see if I can find that on McCoy. We know that they showed them many photographs of I don't have it with me, I guess. Well, here's the good one. Yeah, that's the one who says that you can see there at the bottom there, it's like, McCoy's nose is too big. Cooper's hair was fuller than McCoy's, which is interesting. Things like that. But no, there's a 302 where it's like they showed them color photos, black and white photos, side profile, standing photos. In fact, we have the standing photos. They're actually in the FBI files. Here's McCoy being photographed by the FBI. I'd like to have another thing that I have about 40 FOIAs right now. I FOIA'd for a high quality version of this one. And there's his little kicks there. There's Dick McCoy. Look at his torso. See how his torso is longer than his legs? They noted that about him. And they wonder, his height estimations are crazy. Like one of his own stewardesses thought he was 5'7". And he's like 5'11" or something. I mean, I think it's because his legs are short or something. So I don't know. Okay. Did McCoy ever say he was Cooper? Hell no. No. He vehemently denied being Cooper. Absolutely. No. He admitted he was influenced by Cooper. I mean, I think it's... let me do this. All right. So I'm going to read here from McCoy's own words. So we can, for those of you who don't know, who've never heard McCoy, I guess, I'll read what he said to, here it is. Okay, this is Richard McCoy to the court when he's talking to them during sentencing. He goes, "My current problem began innocently. The original idea was to write a research paper for one of my university law enforcement classes on how to prevent skyjackings. I felt my background and life experiences had given me an advantage over others in solving that problem. After working on this project in a haphazard fashion for a couple months, it became apparent that I wouldn't be able to prove my original theory. After carefully analyzing the steps a well-equipped skyjacker would employ and the countermeasures the FBI would take, I concluded there was no effective deterrent once an airplane had been taken over. Although I fantasized on what the experience would be like, as people do in reading an adventure story or watching an exciting movie, it was later, when my problems seemed insurmountable, that I seriously considered undertaking such a project. In working on the project, it was necessary to play the roles of the people involved. The person I identified most with was the skyjacker. Playing his role and figuring out how he would handle different situations seemed, at the time, to be a harmless escape from reality." He says, I'll continue. Sorry if this is boring, but it is McCoy Day, right? So we're reading his own words. I mean, I guess none of us have ever heard McCoy talk, so we'll hear at least his words that he wrote and then spoke. This is McCoy's writing. Somewhere along the line, it occurred to me that this was the solution to my personal problems, one way or the other. If I was successful, I would not have to worry about physical handicaps, taking care of my children after the divorce, he was getting divorced, or supporting a second family if I decided to remarry. If I wasn't successful, according to my thinking, I would be dead. Those were the only two alternatives I ever considered. As far as the occupants of the airplane were concerned, I intentionally made my plans so they would be exposed to a minimum amount of danger. I would never under any circumstances have harmed anyone, even if it came to a showdown. The only real danger was from outside interference, and I had made it clear that no one from the outside would be allowed on the plane. There were no explosives involved. The hand grenade, as was demonstrated in court, was inert. I gambled that no one would call my bluff. They knew from the notes I sent to the pilot that I knew of what I was talking about. Other than the crew, only a few were aware that anything was amiss. The passengers were not informed of the situation until just before they disembarked in San Francisco. That's not true. The passengers definitely knew. Let's see. He says here, "I'm now going to mention one last reason that I hope your honor will consider in making your decision." This is him asking for not to get life in prison. "This involves my immediate family. As I have mentioned, my wife and I were having serious marital problems prior to my arrest. These problems have not been resolved completely, but considering my present circumstances, they are insignificant by comparison. Karen said she is sticking by me. How long she will continue to do this is impossible to predict. According to her, in all probability, she will wait 15 or 20 years. I doubt that personally, Your Honor, but it may turn out that she won't have any option. There aren't many men that will take on the responsibility of a woman with 2 small children. At present, Karen is supporting herself and our children working as a caseworker for the county welfare department. How long this will continue is a matter for speculation. As you may be aware, Karen is afflicted with a deteriorating bone condition, a rather distressful form of arthritis. While I was awaiting trial, she underwent a bone transplant in her right wrist. The doctors are now recommending another operation to remove 2 inches of the ulna. Even this is only a stopgap measure. She's been told that she will eventually altogether lose the ability to use her right arm. Her situation would be bad under even normal circumstances, but now, due to my inability to help, it's worse. In spite of Karen and my problems, I care for her very much and would provide for her if circumstances were different. Even more, I am concerned for the welfare and future of my children. I love them more than life itself. They have done nothing wrong and are completely innocent here. So he says, in conclusion, Judge Ritter, let me say that I am not attempting to excuse what I did. I have made a big mistake and I am willing to pay for it. All I can do is ask you, one man to another, to give me a sentence I can serve. 45 years life is not realistic. I wouldn't even attempt it. My children by that time would be 30 years of age before I was released on parole. I have been a good citizen in my life, soldier, and I hope you will consider this in passing judgment. So, story time. Hope that wasn't boring, but kind of moving to actually hear the words of a guy like that. All right. All right, folks. Why do I find McCoy's words to be truthful? Am I being gullible? No, you're not being gullible. No, McCoy was a good guy by all accounts. I mean, he had no criminal record whatsoever and was a good guy. The people in the papers were shocked. His neighbors were like, he taught Sunday school. He shoveled the snow out of all the neighbors' yards and driveways, just without them asking for it for years. McCoy was a good guy, but he came back with terrible migraines from the war. Like I said, he would bang his head up against the wall because I guess that hurt less than the pain he was in. He had somewhere in there, he thought he had a brain tumor, perhaps. And he was suicidal because he had PTSD. The real tragedy of McCoy is that our hijackers all got out early because they had problems from the war. Rob Hetty did the same thing Cooper did. Rob Hetty was given a life sentence. He's out in 5 or 6 years. LaPointe, the McConaughey guy, 5-6 years, he was out. There is no reason whatsoever to suspect that McCoy wouldn't, a decorated war hero. He won a Distinguished Flying Cross. That's like right below the Medal of Honor. Okay. There's no reason to think that a decorated war hero like McCoy, who was suffering from mental trauma from the war, would not have also been given that same sympathy and been released early. So McCoy would have but McCoy would have been 81 or 82. We could have had McCoy at CooperCon last year instead of McNally. Could have had McCoy this year at CooperCon, right? So the real tragedy of it is that he didn't think he'd be paroled early like the other guys. He didn't know the other guys were going to be, none of them knew they were going to be paroled early. So he thought he was in there for 45 years. So that's why he broke out, because he wanted to get free and see his kids, and just real tragic situation there. But yeah, McCoy's sad, but McCoy's not Cooper. And literally the only person I know who thinks McCoy's Cooper, who has any influence at all, is Dan Gryder. And, all right, let's see. Nobody says they're Cooper, only on deathbeds, right? McCoy would be a fool to say he was Cooper. No, you'd be surprised. Actually, it might have benefited him to admit he was Cooper. because you can do that. So if you commit multiple crimes, I know as a prosecutor and a defense attorney, you can actually get less time. As weird as it sounds, that like, look, hey, you don't have to expend resources anymore looking for Cooper because I am Cooper. Or I would go to the DA's office or the U.S. Attorney's office as a defense attorney and say, look, my client is going to tell you something, but we need a deal worked out. We need to make sure that he's not going to get any more time, and actually might get less time because we're saving investigative money and things. So it might have actually benefited him or somebody to admit they were Cooper. Okay. Let's see. Dixie Norman's talking about the pressure bump, not around 813. Yeah. Well, south of it was a little bit south of the Lewis River by then. Okay. Do you think Cooper left the country? I think he landed, went to the East California coast, got a boat. Yeah. I mean, there's some current thought among people, and I'm not totally opposed to it, that when Cooper said he wanted to go to Mexico City, he did want to go to Mexico, and for whatever reason decided to jump early. He was described as looking Latin, which, I mean, Flo Schaffner got the best look at Cooper. She said 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes after getting off the plane, tells the FBI he looked of Latin descent. So then we have Robert Gregory saying he looks Mexican. So, yeah, maybe he wanted to go to Mexico. Maybe he was a lighter skinned Mexican. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if you live, you definitely want to get out of the country. I mean, if you can. I mean, you know, Cooper knew that when Cooper woke up that morning, he knew he was either going to be dead in 24 hours or the subject of a national manhunt, right? So I'm not hanging around. And that's one thing that I like about the Canadian Cooper theory is that if Cooper's Canadian, then the FBI doesn't have a lot of jurisdiction up there. I mean, they could get it, but like, it's not as easy. Like, they can't just walk up to you and say, hey, we're with the FBI, like they did to Orville Lions in Mississippi. Just walk up and say, hey, we're the FBI. You know, they have to get permissions, and there's some ish going on there. So either it be Mexico or Canada, you know, maybe Cooper was trying to get somewhere to both, you know, or one or the other. Let's see. Heard it was death for that crime. Yeah, at the time it was capital punish. It was yeah, that was a death penalty crime for sure. In fact, during McCoy's, I forget what the case is. I should know it, but the case that overruled the death penalty. So they got rid of the death penalty during the McCoy trial. Or actually, it might have been literally while they had convicted McCoy. The jury was doing the sentencing. So it was literally during the sentencing when the jury was having to decide death, life, 45 years, whatever, that the Judge Ritter, who was the federal judge, brought the jury in and said, hey, look, I can gladly tell you guys that the death penalty has been overturned, and there will be no death penalty deliberations about McCoy. So don't even think about it. So yeah, that actually happened during the McCoy hijacking. Yeah, the stewardess did say I had a Midwestern accent. That's correct. McCoy was like me. McCoy's a Southerner, especially back then. So McCoy not only had a lisp and a speech impediment, he had a Southern accent, probably a heavy Southern accent, being from the sticks of North Carolina. Cooper spoke clearly, articulately, with no affectations, and with a Midwestern accent. So, yeah, not McCoy. Do you think if Dan Gryder watched your show, he'd have a different view? Dan loves the Bruce Smith book, but you and Bruce often joke that it has many things wrong in it. Yeah. No, Dan is, I mean, I wish, but unfortunately, sunken cost fallacy is large in the Cooper world. Many people, if you look up the sunken cost fallacy, people will not admit they're wrong. Like Colbert and Rackstraw. Rackstraw is not DB Cooper. Like, no way in hell. Like, worse than McCoy. In fact, and McCoy's pretty bad as a Cooper suspect, all things considered. But he'll never admit to that. And Dan is too proud. Dan's way too proud. He'll never admit that he wasted the FBI's time on bullshit. He'll never do that. So no, I don't expect him to have watched my show. Maybe he did. I don't know. But people like him don't even like to watch opposing viewpoints. So I'll see. But I don't know how he could defend this. I'm not trying to like gloat or anything, but like, how could he defend this now? He was called out. Remember, how do you spin that? How does everything, including your own description from 2008 that you're relying all this on, say it's a Ford Mustang that was taken and you found a Buick? There's no way to spin this. He got called out. He got caught. He didn't know. He doesn't know the case. Didn't research it enough to know that this is bogus. Again, I'm trying to be the bigger person, but like him responding to me about the D rings by saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, dude, there are 70 freaking files in the FBI's where they're talking about D rings. There are a dozen newspaper articles like the next day where they're like, yeah, it didn't have D rings on it. Like, okay, I know what I'm talking about. And for you to say that Cooper was actually bitching about the lack of, because Cooper's bitching, he says, where are my D rings? They should know I need D rings. And Tina's like, I don't know what the hell a D ring is. But he's bitching at her about it. And Dan says, oh no, he's talking about the money bag not having D rings on it. Dude, I mean, that's the best you got. I mean, I've heard a lot of preposterous things on the Cooper case, but that's about it. That's ridiculous. I mean, that might be that's absurd. That's no offense to Eric if he's watching, but like Eric had an idea one time that Vince Peterson grew a beard, then shaved it in the airport in Portland to get on the plane. Like, wait, the beard is a disguise, Eric. Why would he shave the disguise and then get on the plane? But that was Eric's theory. Okay. Okay. The weird one. All right. So, my gosh, I've got 154 people. I feel obligated to keep talking. Jeez, been too. Rekka. Okay. Kilter. I need to know right now, is this sarcasm? Or are you actually saying that Walter Rekka was DB Cooper? I need to know if that's sarcasm or not. Because I need to know. I need to know. All right, let's see. So, question here. Okay. Did the rear stairs have power down and up, or down or drop by gravity and up a power? Power up and gravity down. So people are messaging me. Let me see this. Hang on a second. Sorry. Anyway. Well, thank you, Nicole. Dan is not respected by many in the aviation community. Yeah, I don't know. Dan keeps showing the Bruce Smith book. Yeah, no, Bruce knows it's outdated. I mean, what's funny is if you actually read the edition, like Bruce has in the edition that Dan's waving around, Bruce updated it to include all the parachute things about D-rings and everything. So Dan knows what the majority opinion is on the hijacking. You know? So yeah, Dan knows that if he read the book. But Dan's the type of guy who only wants to know what he only wants to hear an echo chamber. He only wants to deal with what he's got going on in his own brain. And that's the kind of person that Dan is, I think. I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to be ugly to the guy. I don't want to get it. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not being ugly. I just, this whole thing is seems like a publicity stunt to me, because this happened 2 years ago. Remember that? Like, that happened 2 years ago. I mean, we found this parachute. I have a Drop Zone post on December 6, 2022, where I'm like, this parachute's garbage. So, I mean, that's why I was surprised to wake up and see this being a story again. I'm like, oh, we're back to this. I thought we had debunked this and you got embarrassed 2 years ago. But I'm seeing the sunken cost fallacy with the recent, Vince Peterson. Eric knows better. He has to know better. There is no DNA. There is 3 partial profiles taken from a tie that probably not DB Cooper's DNA on any of it. There are 3 partial profiles that were recovered in 2002. They are so partial that I think for each of them, millions of Americans would have would be a positive. So, like, the risk of false positives is just way too high. So they don't really like the DNA. I mean, they were collecting the DNA from McCoy just to dot their I's and cross their T's, I think. But I mean, the main thing is they think that they could, if any of it is Cooper's DNA, they could rule somebody out but not rule them in. Now, it sounds weird. It took me a while to figure out what that meant, but they could exclude but not include. So basically, it's like, if, like, this is the Cooper DNA and, like, this is my DNA. Like, if I match, it doesn't make me Cooper. It just means I'm a match. But if there is no match, it means I'm definitely not Cooper. That was the FBI's thought at the time. But I mean, again, it's so unlikely that any of those profiles are DB Cooper's, because of so many, how many dozens or 100 different people have touched that tie in between when that left on the plane and when it was tested. 30 years. So the DNA on the tie is a joke. I don't think there's any good DNA on that. All right. So, don't fall for it. Okay. Did Cooper require 1.21 gigawatts? Yeah. I feel like, gosh, I don't know why I thought about this. Mad Men. That would have been such a great ending for Mad Men if Don Draper had been DB Cooper. I would have just loved that. They should have, like, set that up from the beginning. They should have had him be a paratrooper or something in Korea. Something that bothers me about Mad Men? Don Draper, the character, is born in 1925. Okay. Yeah, 1925. So Don Draper means Don Draper was 18 in 1943. But for some reason, the show makes him a Korean War veteran. So he's in the Korean War. No. Don Draper would have been in World War II. He'd have been 18 in 1943 in the middle of the war. Hell yeah, man. You're 18 years old in 1943. You are serving in World War II. You bet your ass you're serving World War II and you're 18 in 1943. So, I mean, there were guys committing suicide because they weren't allowed to join up because they had some physical problem. So, yeah. Don Draper should have been a World War II veteran. That always bugged me about that show. I don't know why they made him a Korean War veteran. Anyway. But yeah, Don Draper would have been a great Cooper. Because the opening of Mad Men is the Draper in this skinny tie and the suit falling from the sky. So that'd have been a cool Cooper homage sort of thing. That all along we were setting him up to be DB Cooper. That's been really cool. And what stinks is we know that Matthew Weiner, the guy who wrote it, was very much aware of DB Cooper. So you keep saying this. DB Cooper is Diego. Here's the problem with this. Diego Barrera Cortez. Like, DB is made up. The hijacker's name was Dan Cooper, his alias, not DB. So anybody who makes a connection to DB, gone. Because that's a media mess up. The media messed that up. His name, Dan Cooper. So if any theory that has a DB in it, no way. Because that wasn't anything he ever did. Where do I currently stand on Cooper being left-handed? I mean, I can't say likely because 90% of people are right-handed, right? But I am a lefty, and I kind of know how lefties think. And Martin McNally was left-handed. And if you were the firstborn son, you wouldn't get drafted. Don Draper grew up in a whorehouse in the show. So I don't think that would have, I think it was an orphan or something. Anyway, left-handed, yes. So McNally, okay, so Cooper sits, here's interesting. Cooper sits on do lefties think alike? They think weirdly. But Cooper, the reason some people think he might be left-handed is just that, well, he's smoking left-handed, but that's not really a thing. But he leaves his right hand in a dummy. And if we assume the bomb is fake, and I'm kind of leaning more toward that now that I used to think maybe it was real, but I go back and forth. If the bomb was fake, he kept his hand in the briefcase most of the time. Think about this. Would you be more comfortable? Which hand would you be more comfortable leaving idle for hours, just not being able to do anything? Well, I'm left-handed. I'd want my right hand to be just sitting there. So, I'm left-handed, so I can grab things in the aisle. I can pass notes. I can handwrite if I have to. I can do all kinds of things with my left hand because I'm left-handed. And we know that McNally sat on that side of the plane because he's a lefty. McNally had his machine gun, and he was able to. He sat there because he wanted to be able to lean out into the aisle with his rifle or his submachine gun. So there's that. All right. But lefty, I don't know. Lefties do have more divergent thinking. They're more likely to be like autistic and have like divergent thinking. And Cooper certainly had divergent thinking to come up with this whole thing, really. Kind of a clever outside the box fella. I don't know. Possible. Yeah, Skip Hall was left-handed. Says a tie clip, that's another thing. I'm not sure about that. It says the tie was clipped from the left side. Hard to say. I've seen FBI photos where it's both ways. So because the tie clip and the tie are not kept on at the same time. They're separate pieces of evidence, and they're only put on for display. So it's hard to say. I've seen it both ways. And we don't know how. Were the 9/11 hijackers left-handed? Well, I don't know. Nameless, like McCoy's right-handed. I'm not saying hijackers are left-handed. I'm saying where he sat on the plane and what he did with his hands might indicate he was left-handed. That's why people are bringing this up, because of the things he did on the plane that might indicate a lefty bias, what he was doing with his hands and things. That's why. That's all. Okay. Was McCoy the last person to do a hijack like Cooper did? No. McNally was the last person to jump from a jet. Yeah. Our friend McNally, who was at CooperCon last year, McNally was the last person to do this successfully. Well, to at least jump, get the money and jump. Melvin Fisher was a guy who tried it McNally is late June, 72, June 23rd, I think, 72. Melvin Fisher is like maybe September 3rd or something like that. So he's a little later. Melvin Fisher actually gets the passengers off, gets his money, ties the money to his body, puts his parachute on, has the pilot circling an area, and he doesn't jump because he's scared. He chickens out. The pilots, they hear a knock on the cabin door, and they open it, and there he is with a pistol, which they didn't even know he had a pistol. Cooper definitely had a pistol, I think, by the way. But he hands him a pistol. They're like, oh, what? He's like, I surrender. I'm scared. So, but McNally. So no, we actually had three guys. McCoy is number 3. Cooper, Richard LaPointe. So Cooper is November 71. LaPointe is January 72. McCoy is April 72. 3. Heineman is May 72. And then Rob Hetty and McNally are June. So McCoy is right in the middle there. All right. Oh Lord, we got some 9/11 talk going on in the chat. I will stay out of that. Okay. Darren says he's a retired EOD tech and he's been back and forth in some ideas about the bomb, real or fake. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the bomb. I mean, it would have exploded. I mean, they've done enough experiments to know that battery he had would pop a blasting cap on dynamite. Yeah. Let's see. Nicole's about tie clips going on shirts. Well, yeah. So tie clips, men's shirts and women's shirts are different. See, don't they button differently? So like, I'm trying to think, I don't remember how I button a shirt. Yeah, I guess like that. So yeah, the tie clip should go on the right side of that tie, right? Somebody let me know. I think the tie clip would go on the right if it was to be used to clip to your shirt, which is the purpose of a tie clip. Darren's previous comment. Okay. Darren says, do the 302s make any reference to DC? Oh, DB Cooper. Okay. Must be what it's called, DB. To DC paying any attention to the bomb after the final takeoff. No. That's another point too. You make a good point there, Darren. And I've said that before, is that there's no mention of the bomb at all after the passengers got the plane. Cooper is busy crafting MacGyvering his little money bag thing. He's busy making this thing. He spends an hour and a half making the money bag back there. Hour and a half making that stupid thing. Cutting shroud lines out of parachutes and things. It's like OCD or something. I don't know what his problem is. He had fixation, but no mention of the bomb. So it's almost like the bomb was a deterrent against the passengers, right? Once it's just the stewardesses back there, I almost get the sense that the stewardesses felt it was fake too, because they don't seem afraid. I mean, they're afraid, but not so afraid. Alice Hancock goes back there, saunters back there, and starts talking to Cooper about parachutes. Would it be fascinating? That's why we need these things recorded. They didn't record these interviews with these people off the plane. The FBI does not record interviews. They have to now if it's a death penalty case or if it's a murder. But they don't record interviews. It's been their policy forever. So we don't know. But all it says in Alice's 302, she asked him about parachutes. Well, Alice was married to a skydiver, and she had skydived herself. And there were no tandem jumps back then. So Alice Hancock, one of the stewardesses, was a skydiver. Or, I mean, was a hobbyist skydiver, but she had jumped before. So they talked about parachutes, and who knows what they talked about, but it could be enlightening to know if they talked about things. But Alice Hancock goes back there and shoots the shit with him. If I thought somebody had a real bomb, no way. I'm staying as far away. No one ordered her to go back there and shoot the shit with the guy. And Flo's back there monkeying around. He's making her pick up the bag and stuff. If Flo thought the bomb was real, then I doubt she's hanging out back there. So no one's making them go back there. Tina's back there. She's a hostage, but the other two stewardesses go back there and talk to him. So they didn't seem afraid. Too afraid, I guess. I mean, they asked him to let them go, but you could shout that down the airplane. Hey, can we go? I'm not coming near the dynamite, but they didn't have a problem with it seems. So yeah, that would be, but no, the briefcase, he didn't take it with him. He threw it out the back. Probably he had no reason to keep it. The FBI felt that the dummy chute and the briefcase were just chunked. I mean, there's a huge in between, Seattle and the Portland area. It's a bunch of woods. It's a forest, where that area, it's a big forest. So Cooper would have just tossed it out the back. He had no reason to hold on to that. We can learn a lot from the copycat hijackers because people generally do things the same way. And the copycat hijackers tossed their shit out the back that they didn't need. Clothes, briefcases, everything. So, and we know what Cooper looked like when he was ready to jump. Basically, he was already, Tina saw him roughly. Now, I do think he could have pulled some gloves and things out of his mystery bag he had with him. Remember, folks, mystery bag. If people watching my channel for the first time, that's the big unknown. And Larry Carr even talks about that. Larry Carr doesn't have a high opinion of Cooper, but at least he goes, the mystery bag. John Detler I interviewed one of the original Norjack case agents at CooperCon, and I was talking to him privately. He's like, I sure would like to know what was in that bag. I'm like, me too. But Cooper had a bag like 4 inches tall that was about as a little bit less than wider than the briefcase. So maybe boots, perhaps. Maybe once Tina goes to the front, he takes his shoes off and puts boots on. Maybe, well, I mean, whatever it was, he didn't use any of it during the hijacking. He didn't open his bag at all during the hijacking. So whatever was in that bag would have been used for his jump or for his escape. So when people say he just jumped without whatever, like an idiot, then we don't know that. Could have had goggles and gloves and a beanie or whatever in there. Altimeter, right? We don't know what he had in that bag. So we'll never know, which is like another like screw you. Because like if any of you who know Star Trek, I've started using this. This is the Kobayashi Maru test in Star Trek, right? In Star Trek, they have the unwinnable test. And James T. Kirk is the only person who's ever beat it at Starfleet Academy. And it's because he cheated, right? So this is like the Kobayashi Maru of like FBI cases because it's ridiculous. Like nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense about this case. It's so confusing. You can't get a bearing on this guy. Oh, do you think a case like Cooper could ever happen in the U.S.? No. I mean, I don't know how it could. Commercial airliners don't have, you can't exit one in flight, really. It doesn't really, I mean, you could, you bring the plane down, I guess, but I don't know how, you could do it like Bane and Batman Returns or whatever that movie was, the Batman movie, where Bane's in it. You could do something weird like that. I don't know, but no. So Steven's saying, what was your question there, Steve? For a different version of no, Cooper, yeah. The person that killed McCoy said he shot Cooper when he shot McCoy. I find that interesting when so many witnesses said McCoy. Well, then why is that interesting? How would he know? He doesn't know. He's not a case agent. The guy who shot McCoy was a agent on the East Coast. He wasn't like a Cooper case agent. That's the important thing to remember is like the FBI in North Carolina who came and got Gryder's parachute. They don't know shit. It's not their case. They don't have the files. They don't, Larry Carr made that very clear during his interview with Inside Edition. He hasn't aired yet, but like Larry made it very clear that like the FBI coming to pick up a parachute is not an endorsement of McCoy. That's the Gryder is spinning this by saying, oh, well, the FBI came to pick up the parachute. That means something. It doesn't mean anything. Like it was found, a parachute found in a suspect's house is going to be intriguing. Of course, they're going to come check it out and they're going to take it. But the FBI have said this since 2016. Don't call us because we're not going to spend resources on anything with Cooper unless a parachute is found, the money bag or money is found, or a body is found. So those are the three things. And so, yeah, you found a parachute and you found a parachute in in this storage unit or whatever, and in great condition, by the way. You found this and of course they're going to come check it out. I could find one if I went to, I don't know, somebody, if I went to, I don't know, some shed owned by Sheridan Peterson or something. And I called the FBI saying, oh my God, I found a parachute. They're going to come get it. The FBI agents and their North Carolina agents, that's not their case, right? The FBI has the same files. Like Larry Carr was working with the same files that I have now. There's no holdbacks. I've asked the guy, he's my friend. He's like, no, there's no holdbacks. There's nothing. You got you have what I had. You may as well be a Norjack case agent, Ryan, or Nikki, or Chris Cunningham, any of us, Nicole. We may as well be Norjack agents because we have the exact same things we have. Somebody asked earlier what I would do if I had full sway over the FBI for 14 days. Find the freaking hair slide. I would turn the Vegas office upside down. I would go through every evidentiary case they've got. I mean, we know the hair slide. It's like PXQ255. I mean, it's got a distinct number on it, so it's got an evidentiary tag on it. So, that's all you could do. There's nothing to do with the power of the FBI except look for the evidence because Cooper's long dead. There's nothing we can do to, the witnesses look, the FBI essentially gave up in 1976. We have them. There was a conference that took place in the FBI. The FBI had a DB Cooper, the very first DB Cooper conference. I hadn't thought about that. The very first DB Cooper conference was in San Francisco in November, maybe August of 76. They were anticipating the 5-year anniversary. And they have this meeting and they're like, it's like agents from San Francisco, from LA, from Seattle, from Portland. They're like, well, do we have any ideas? Because see, the FBI ran out of things to do. And because they had their own leads. They were like, maybe he's an Air America guy. Let's go research Air America. Maybe he's this, maybe he's that. They generated their own leads and investigated things just like we would do. But by 76, they had nothing else to think about. That they literally just had to wait for the phone to ring and respond to calls. And that became a big problem for them. And that's when they took all these agents off the case. And they're like, well, we just have to wait for the phone to ring. But they had this brainstorming session. Like, what can we do? Let's have a national treasure hunt was something they said. They said, let's publish the serial numbers and we can have a national treasure hunt. We can promise people that they won't get in trouble for possessing stolen property. Because that's another thing too. If you technically, when Brian and his dad pulled the money out of Tina Barr, technically they were in possession of stolen property. Not that they would have been charged with it, but it could have been. I mean, theoretically, it could have been. Okay. As like a percentage, how big do you think the chances are that Cooper was local to the Portland area saddle? Don't think so. We can look at the other hijackers, the copycats again. They made sure to travel a great distance. All of them except for like Heinemann. Heinemann was a bit, he's had mental problems. Heinemann was telling the crew who his dad was. And doesn't really count in my opinion. Problem with being local is you could be spotted, right? Every time I go to the airport here in Jackson, Mississippi, I generally see somebody I know. Even if I don't say hi to them, I recognize them and say, oh, I see somebody, So I think that, think about this. You're running a real risk, right? Let's just say you're from Vancouver, Washington, outside Portland, and you're at the airport and this hijacking occurs and your neighbor from down the street is like, hey, at last year's barbecue, Ryan told me that he was at D-Day. He was a paratrooper in the war. We were cooking out. And I saw him in the airport that day. I'm gonna call the FBI, right? So you run that risk. And so they generally would travel far away. McCoy goes from Provo, Utah, and he begins his hijacking in Denver. McNally lives in Detroit and hijacked in St. Louis. LaPointe was living in Denver, actually from Vermont. But he is living in Denver. He goes to Vegas to do his hijacking. Heinemann, like I said, a little off. And Rob Hetty doesn't really count because he was wearing a hood. Rob Hetty was ran aboard like a maniac, wearing a hood and like a lynch mob hood or something. So that's Hetty. Jay, I can never figure out Jay. I like you, Jay. I can never figure out you're a loyal fan, but I can never figure out your if this is a act or not. Because some of the things you say, like witnesses maybe didn't want to ID McCoy as Cooper, as it would mean heading to court for months. No. All right, let's see. All right, we're coming up on 3 hours, which I have to get off then. This is going on so long. But okay, let's see. Any more? One final question. So not possible that the 302s have been doctored to keep information from the public. Well, I mean, they're doctored, they're redacted. So they are doctored, but nothing like there are no holdbacks as far as I know. And Larry's retired. Larry has no reason to lie or whatever. And again, here's the thing about holdbacks. These files, most all of these files, I mean, it's kind of like we have 45,000 now, and they're all online. Most of them are just communication. I mean, they're internal communications. So what you see is you'll see an agent from St. Louis say, hey, I have a suspect here. And the FBI in Seattle will send them this big packet of information about Cooper. And it's got all the things. So, I mean, why would they not, there's no holdbacks in those packets. There's nothing that we haven't seen before, no redactions, nothing we haven't seen before. So why would an agent in 72 send a packet to St. Louis FBI internal, that nobody can see, that would leave out something dramatic, like his scar on his hand or something, whatever. So no, we have what they wanted. We have what they have, which wasn't a lot, because he was a ghost essentially. Blindy McNobody was DB Cooper. All right, I would keep one bit of info that I did. The tie was kept private until the first book. Actually, the real McCoy book was the first book. This garbage right here, and I say garbage because it's good for the McCoy stuff, but like the Cooper stuff is just bonkers. But that was the first book that had that mentioned the tie. So, and we didn't even see the tie until Larry Carr brought it out in 2007 or 8. So nobody saw DB Cooper's tie in like the mainstream until 2007 or 8. That was their holdback because they wanted to say, okay, if you're Cooper or you know somebody who was Cooper, what did Cooper leave on the plane? That was their idea for a holdback. So didn't Cooper eat a magazine on flight? No. That is, they recovered from the floor a crumpled piece from Airways magazine or whatever it was. But there's no indication that came from Cooper himself. They did test it for fingerprints and stuff, but there's no indication that he did. Now, McCoy did read a magazine. McCoy's fingerprints, my God, people. Okay. Okay. I got 133 people. I'm going for broke. Okay. Y'all want more. Okay. While we're talking about McCoy, remember I'm always bitching about McCoy saying, look, it's okay to think McCoy was Cooper, but you're wrong. They're just different human beings, people, because of how they behaved. All right. Check out the number of fingerprints McCoy left behind. Okay. McCoy. All right. Remember, Cooper left no fingerprints behind. All of his fingerprints were partial prints. So he had glue on his fingers or something, or wiped them down, something. Cooper left no prints. Everything by his seat was just partial. So he did something to his fingerprints. Whereas McCoy, let me show you how many fingerprints McCoy left behind. Y'all gonna like this. If I can find where it is. Sorry, folks. I'm sorry the silence. I'll have to edit this out. Oh man. Oh, here's McCoy's hijacking note, by the way. If you're interested in seeing what his hijacking note looked like, or one of his notes. Get the hell off the ground. So yeah, that sounds like Cooper, doesn't it? It kind of does, I guess. You get the show on the road. Let me find this this bit on McCoy and his fingerprints. It's a full listing of all of the prints from McCoy. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So here's the prints that McCoy left on the plane. Boom. So yeah, what is that? 1, 4, 5 palm prints even. My God. Oh yeah, and they compared his palm prints to Cooper's palm print. They do have Cooper's palm print. They don't have his fingerprints. They have his palm print. not a match on the palm print. 4, air sickness bag. I mean, these are McCoy's prints. Like he was not, he was no DB Cooper. You, sir, are no DB Cooper if you leave in that many prints, right? All right, let's see what else. Yeah. All right. What else do we have here on McCoy that I can show you guys? That's the money. Oh, I don't know. Okay, but anyway, yeah. Oh yeah, here's a good one. Here's a good one, people. There's another one that you'll like on McCoy. Where is it? Oh man, hang on. I'm sorry, people. Stay with me. Oh, here we go. The Band-Aid, yes. So McCoy had a scar on his face, maybe from the war or something, but he had a scar on his face that was so prominent that he needed, or maybe it was a mole, I think. I'm not sure, but he had a Band-Aid. Yeah, here's McCoy. It says McCoy has a 1/4-inch circular scar left cheek where a mole was removed. Okay, he wore a Band-Aid during the hijacking on his face to cover that up. His hands do not appear to be those of a mechanic. Fingernails are short and contain quantity of dirt, but are not chewed. McCoy has a noticeable lisp or speech impediment and rolls his tongue while forming words. These are the FBI when they're interviewing McCoy. But anyway, yeah, so McCoy wore a Band-Aid on his face also, like Nelly, the rapper, I guess. But so, yeah, Cooper didn't have any scars. Didn't have a 1/4-inch scar on his face. So just not Cooper. Yeah. I cleaned up that note, by the way. Let's see what that note says. Maybe this is the second note, maybe. Yeah, there's another note. Get some more men on that luggage cart. What's going on with that baggage cart? Use it right. Step it up. So, yeah. So he left his handwriting on the plane. Cooper's like, give me my empty matchbook back. I mean, this is not the same person. How many times do we have to say it? These are different human beings. And think about this. Hear nothing. McCoy typed out all of his degrees of flight. He wanted the plane to go certain directions. He typed out the degrees and he hid them in, he wrote them on flight plan things and he hid them in different seats. So he's like, okay, when we get to this vector or whatever, I want a stewardess to come back and pick up from the seat pocket of 12E the next note. And that there, well, I can't read it, but these are degrees that he wanted and knots. He gave precise knots, ground speed, all kinds of things like this. 5 minutes prior to reaching thing, I want you to go. It says look in seat pocket next to window. I mean, this is intricately planned. Cooper's like, I don't give a shit. Fine, go to Reno. I don't care. I mean, different people, completely. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your D-rings. That's funny, Zodi. That's good. No, DB Cooper, we don't know his political views. He was apolitical. Let's see. Yeah, McCoy was in a dark place. See, what else do we have about McCoy that we can close the door, get off the ground? We have all of his notes. Let me see what this is. Oh, okay. Does this sound like DB Cooper to y'all? Another one. Another McCoy bit here from his files. Hang on. Sorry. Where is it? Sorry, folks. I keep
I have to go and it's kind of hard to have to go find these stupid things. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Bear with me. This is a good one. So the interphone doesn't work. Let me just read this for people who are listening on podcast. It says, this is the co-pilot, Lee, I think his name was. Lee advised that on one occasion, the subject, that'd be McCoy, could not get the intercom to work, and he came to the cockpit door and opened it slightly. Hey, he asked for information on wind position and altitude. So, like, again, Cooper didn't give him a speed to fly. He's like, whatever. I mean, it's just, yeah, not the same dude. All right. Maybe there's one more I can find. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, this will kill the, Dan Gryder likes to say that, Denise Burns, his sister-in-law, implies that she babysitted the kids while McCoy was while Karen and Richard were off in California the week of the hijacking, right? That's what Dan was trying to imply. But not true at all, because he was in class. Class roll was taken. Records indicate McCoy attended his class at 8 to 9:30 on November 23rd, the day before the hijacking. He's not in California. He's at home, or he's in that's where he is. Oh, well, here's the FBI file of how he was caught. So Van Ypern was his buddy. Van Ypern calls the McCoy house to talk about the hijacking, about McCoy's hijacking, because he knows McCoy is into Cooper and stuff. He's like, oh, there's a Cooper hijacking taking place, and the plane is heading toward Utah. Hey, Richard, isn't this cool? So he calls Richard's house, and Denise, the sister, and his sister-in-law answers. I'll read this for people. This is somebody stated that approximately at 9:30 on the night of April 7th, 72, McCoy's sister-in-law talked to Ypern by telephone and asked him if McCoy was on a mission of some sort. That at about 11:30 later on, he had another phone conversation with the sister-in-law who stated that McCoy was not home. And she stated to Ypern that she was scared to death as McCoy had tried to get her to help him on a hijacking. So that is Denise implying that, hey, McCoy, Dick's not here. He's been recruiting me to help him on a hijacking. Well, Ypern's like, oh, really? So Ypern was a sheriff's agent, by the way. So yeah, not smart. So Denise ran her mouth and gave him away. Yeah, it is kind of crummy to still pissed off that McCoy's friend turned him in. But okay, let's see. All right. Well, that's what was the terrain like? Where he landed? Nice, actually. I mean, not bad at all. Orchards looks nice, actually. It's flat, has some open spaces, hilly, good place. There's a parachute field in Orchards. That'll tell you something. There's a parachuting skydiving center in Orchards, Washington, where most of us think he jumped-ish around that area now. So even like Himmelsbach, who thinks Cooper crawled to a stream in the wilderness and died, even Himmelsbach in his book, Norjack's like, yeah, there's skydiving fields near the drop zone, so it can't be that bad. So yeah, it wasn't. The one that would bother me is Heinemann. Heinemann jumped out over the mountains, over the jungle mountains of Honduras. No way. In the dark? Shit. No, not me. I'm not doing that. I see where they jumped. So Hetty jumped and landed in brush next to Lake Tahoe or somewhere around there. McCoy jumps in a great spot. McCoy jumps wide open field in in Springville, Utah, south of where he's from. He had scouted that place out. He knew where he was going to jump exactly and hit it almost exactly. So good terrain for him. LaPointe landed in the snow outside Denver and broke his ankle. Poor LaPointe lands in the snow. McNally lands in roughly a cow pasture in Indiana. But Heineman jumps out in the mountains of Honduras and is seen the next morning getting a shave at a barber shop in Honduras. What a badass weirdo Heineman was. Love Heineman. What a maniac. Heineman found the transmitters in the parachutes. So they put parachutes in Heineman's parachute. They put trackers in Heineman's parachutes, and Heineman was smart enough to go dig around in his parachutes and found them. And there's a great part where Heineman like goes up to the cockpit and is like, "Hey, I found your trackers. My army waiting for me in Honduras can use these." Like he thought he had like an army waiting for him in Honduras. He thought he was going to go like start a revolution in Honduras or something with all this money. Heineman, a weirdo too. Heineman, I believe Heineman asked for his money in, was it 500s and $1,000 bills, I think. Yeah. Heineman asked for his money in thousands and $500 bill denominations, which took them ages to find. Ages to find. All right. So yeah, they had to go find all the Heineman money, $1,000 bills and $500 bills. And they had to fly in this money from everywhere. Like, what are you going to do with $1,000 bill? Like they went to the Treasury Department. Heineman actually looks the most like Cooper as far as what he was wearing. If you've seen my AI thing. So I did a bunch of AIs on the copycats to have them dressed. So this is how the copycats were dressed, if y'all are curious. This is Rob Hetty, who is Rob Hetty was a paratrooper who just got back from Vietnam and had been the NCAA skydiving champion. That was a thing apparently. But Hetty was the NCAA skydiving champion, just got back from Vietnam like 2 weeks earlier. His brain was a PTSD nightmare. Poor guy, really. And if you know the meme Leroy Jenkins, he pulls a Leroy Jenkins and just storms the plane as it's boarding. He doesn't buy a ticket or anything. He just jumps a gate and runs on the tarmac. He sees a 727. It's unloading from the rear stairs. Jim Brown, the football player, I believe, had just gotten off the plane, by the way. Just a cool side note. He just walked past him and he goes running, and Hetty goes running past him but Hetty is wearing a hood, like a executioner hood right there. So that's Rob Hetty. That's how he was dressed, as AI made him, I guess. So, but Rob Hetty was wearing a fishing vest, his army fatigue jacket, khakis, cargo khaki pants, a fishing vest, which is what he put the money in, which is clever because it's going to be attached to your body, right? And he was already wearing his parachute. So Hetty's already wearing his parachute when he runs on board the plane. He carries a pistol, and he was like I said, he was the national skydiving champion. This is Melvin Fisher, the one who chickened out. Looks like John C. Reilly. And these are AI of their faces too. So this is what they actually look like. That's Melvin Fisher. He was wearing a pink shirt, pink tie, and a business suit. Richard LaPointe, Mr. All Right, was wearing a denim blue jeans, a blue shirt, and a denim dress jacket and sunglasses. Our friend Martin McNally was dressing rather spiffily. He was wearing a fake wig, aviators, mustard pants, yellow tie, and red jacket. Here's McCoy again, looking like a clown with blue bell bottoms, floral shirt, yellow tie, red jacket. And Heineman looking like Cooper, right? Heineman was wearing a skinny tie, black suit, sunglasses, wearing gloves though, which Cooper was not wearing gloves. So yeah, Bill Heineman was our mad hijacker. Chris Cunningham just sent me a message saying, are you saying Cooper wrote his own name on the ticket? No. I'm saying Dennis Lisney wrote the name on the ticket, and Dennis Lisney also wrote Bill Mitchell's name. That's what I'm saying. Okay, my God, this is a marathon session. I still have 146 people. Good Lord, this got to stop. The copycats were not Cooper. No kidding. They were copycats. We like the copycats, though, because the copycats, at least, advise us. Some of the things they did can inform us about maybe some things that Cooper did once he landed on the ground or whatever, right? So copycats are interesting. Okay. Homeless camp. Why wasn't Cooper concerned about leaving fingerprints? I think because he obfuscated his fingerprints. The fingerprints he left behind were all partial prints. So he probably put glue on his fingers or something. Maybe his fingers, maybe he was a master criminal and he burned his fingerprints off. Who knows? But he didn't leave any fingerprints. He left a palm print. So they have Cooper's palm print. Does not match McCoy's, by the way. Okay, doesn't match Rackstraw's. They checked Rackstraw, McCoy. If they could get palm prints from you, which was hard, but that was their surest way to eliminate you as a Cooper suspect. They would say, this is in the FBI files. They're like, we asked him, will you supply your palm print? If you don't want to be implicated as being Cooper, if you're not Cooper, you want to prove it, they would say, show us your palm print. Rackstraw told him to piss off. They said, we want your palm print. Rackstraw says, no. And there's a memo where the FBI agents contact the Attorney General's office. And they say, can we hold him down? Can we force him to give us his palm print? And the Attorney General, before the Attorney General could have a response, Rackstraw all of a sudden is like, yeah, sure, you can have a palm print. You're just playing games with them, right? So no, nothing like that. Okay. You're instigating, Dixie Normus says, Tina Mucklow was in on it. You're in denial. Tina's a bad girl. How would she have been in on it? How could Tina be in on it? Tina wasn't even, here's the problem with Tina being in on it. Tina was not Cooper's first choice. Remember? Cooper's first choice was Flo. Florence Schaffner was Cooper's first choice to be his gal, I guess, right? Not Tina. So but Flo freaked out, right? Flo got scared and she, I don't blame her, but she got scared and kind of chickened out, and it became Tina. Tina took the spot. So there's that. Speaking of Flo, I think I may have even told you guys this, that maybe the last time, or have I done a live since CooperCon? No, I haven't. I don't guess. Yeah, have I? I don't remember. I don't think I've done a live since CooperCon. But sadly, speaking of Flo, sad news indeed that they no longer sell. I'll go to Victor 23 to get me a Schaffner Pilsner, and they no longer sell the Schaffner Pilsner at Victor 23. Sadly, they don't sell the Schaffner Pilsner. Apparently, her family had some issues with it, and which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. But I don't know why Cooper's not in the back of the plane. But anyway, yeah, Flo was his first choice. So how can it be Tina when darling Flo here was Cooper's first choice? He didn't know that Flo was gonna panic or whatever or cry. So he would have just handed the note to Tina if she was in on it, right? You use our little noggins here. All right. Good Lord. Okay. My voice is going, folks. I have 140 people. The next thing I'm going to do is maybe in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have a CooperCon look back, get Limbach and Chris Cunningham hopefully on here and do a look back on all the cool things that happened at CooperCon, because there were some cool things. And I'll give you a teaser. some of the cool things that happened at CooperCon. Let's see. I'll show you some photographs here. We had a visitor at CooperCon, our very first Cooper suspect. Look at that. Barb Dayton's ashes were in attendance. So Barb Dayton showed up to CooperCon, and the Foremans, who are the caretakers of the ashes, left them overnight. We were packing up on Saturday night, and I don't know who it was, Nicole Legg or somebody was like, Barb is still here. Like, oh crap, Barb is still on the table. So we had to hide Barb in the museum overnight because we didn't want to take Barb with us. So Barb Dayton, Barb Dayton was there. And let me see what else was cool. Of course, Bill Mitchell was there. I have a cute picture of Nicole Legg here. So our dear friend Nicole, she is from Virginia. We love Nicole. Her and her husband Brad are two of my dear friends, and we had two things left that night. Mark, our great friend Mark Meltzer, the skydiving godfather of Cooper, left his famous, beautiful Cooper 20 there. Just left it, brain farted and left it, walked off without it. And Barb was also left. So Nicole was going to take the $20 back to Mark. And as we're leaving the lobby, as we're heading to the lobby at CooperCon, one of us is like, oh my God, Barb is still here. So we're like, crap, you're going to throw Barb in your purse too, Nicole? Because she had Barb and a Cooper 20. So there's from CooperCon, there's Nicole in her groovy glasses. So there's Barb Dayton and a Cooper 20 in the same photograph, which is cool. No, Vordal's granddaughter wasn't there. When Dina had a ticket, I don't know what happened with Dina. But she, I don't know why she wasn't there. But yeah, there's Nicole, and that's a great photograph. We had a good time there. And there was some cool stuff. Some of the photographs. I love this quote about Braden from a guy who knew Braden. He said, I did not like Ted Braden. He made me nervous. He would come into the club and I would switch my drinking hand to my left hand so I could put my right hand on my pistol. If he would have moved too fast, I would have instantly shot him dead. He was totally unpredictable. I would bet my home, my life, and my Distinguished Service Cross that he was D.B. Cooper. Cool quote. Let's see if I have anything else from CooperCon. I have a photograph, my favorite photograph. Nicole again took a photograph of little Coop, my little buddy, and my money bag on stage. That was pretty cool. Let's see. And here is John Detler and me and Bill Mitchell shaking hands. So for the meeting for the first time, because Detler was there that night, the FBI agent. There's Bill Mitchell saying hey to each other. Those guys, those two, I guess, would have met at some point during the investigation, but hadn't seen each other, I guess, in 50 years. Packer, I hope you don't mind me showing this, but I like this a lot. Limbach showed a photograph of Skip Hall where his hair is different, can look different from different angles. So, the sketches have different hair. And these are photos taken on the same day of Skip Hall. So you can see his hair looks different just depending on what angle you have. So that could be why the hair looks different in every Cooper sketch, because they really didn't know what his hair looked like. So good stuff. There's a good photograph here of Darren and Bill with Bill's younger face in the background getting off the plane. We have a photograph of Bill getting off the plane. And there's Bill talking about everything. Bill being great. And during our Columbia, there's me on the Columbia. Hello. We're on the Columbia River. As we approached Tina Bar, this is a cool photograph. As we approached Tina Bar, literally a rainbow was lighting up Tina Bar. Like, that is Tina Bar that is lit up right there in the sun. It was raining the whole time. And that's that. So that's a cool photograph, isn't it? Pretty baller. Okay. And Cooper's dentures. Yeah, Nicole, I don't want to get into that. But yes, Cooper's dentures. Okay. All right, folks. Well, I got to go because it's 3.5 hours. It's been an eventful day. I'm excited to have played a role in the debunking of a phony artifact. We don't like them. It's, we've debunked some other things, artifacts. I know there was a bed sheet that we had to debunk last year or whatever. But anyway, thanks for watching me for 3.5 hours. My God, I never thought anybody would want to watch my ass talk for 3.5 hours, but okay. All right. Well, anyway, all right, folks. Well, I'm going to go, and I will talk to y'all again soon. As Ringo says, peace and love, peace and love. No more autographs, no more autographs. Peace and love, as Ringo says. All right, folks. Bye. See you around.